completely removed. Unfortunately, this was only accomplished with our focus on getting something done and not the help of the city ordinance. I would like it to be noted, statements in the agenda say that on August 27th, someone from the city went over to the rush personally and found that there was no violation. This is all good and great, but he was way too late. 2 weeks before that, we had met, as I mentioned, mentioned that 2 weeks ago or previously, when Kenny had made those changes mentioned. With the current noise ordinance, this only gives us exactly 2 hours each week to find the rush violation.
Sorry, that's time.
I'm Richard Campbell. I live right behind the Restaurant Center as well, 1870 South, 2150 West, Syracuse. Like them, I also have a little bit of talking about Rush Fund Center. For 3 months this summer, it was I lived there for 3 years prior and really had too much issue with the rush, but at that point it became really bothered. I could hear the sound throughout my house from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And there's nothing I could do about it. I mean, I could wear earbuds, but who wants to be able to have to do that in their house? Sometimes they would play music till midnight, and I have proof, video evidence of it. It was a real bother, and the sad thing is the police couldn't do much for us. They would come 30 minutes after we complained. Sometimes the sound would be turned off by that point. Sometimes they couldn't come at all because they had other things going on, which I understand. But the other thing is, the sound ordinance really is terrible. It does not work. It does not serve its function of relieving and making peace in the community. So one thing that happens is, for 10 minutes if it's during the day, then ordinance is during the day. For 10 minutes, the police officer has to record the sound. For 10 minutes straight, the noise has to be gone. Well, for one, I mean, it's 30 minutes after the event, and then 2, they have to record for 10 minutes. And so, if they turn the sound down at that point, it would be an issue. We wouldn't get help, and many times we didn't get help. And I have video evidence of them playing music past the times and things, but the city also didn't take that into account. So I just want to say that, for one, the sound ordinance doesn't really work. The systems that are in place are terrible. I think they should just have a reasonable person clause that says, hey, if a person of reasonable sound mind thinks that this sound is annoying or unfair, that it should get the rules. I think that would solve a lot of the issues. And honestly, luckily, I was able to talk to Kenny and resolve the issue. I'm grateful for him to work with me on that. But for those 3 months where the city could have done something they didn't, there was laws in place. There was public nuisance laws that they could have enforced, or state laws, but they decided not to. There's city ordinance laws that they showed that they broke 2 times and they did nothing. In fact, I have evidence that they broke it many, many times, but the city still does nothing. I'm really disappointed in the city for doing this, for having us be put through this terrible instance for that time. And then I'm also disappointed that when you have this meeting, you guys didn't invite me personally, and I don't know about them, but as you guys are going to be speaking my name during this meeting, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a written public comment that was submitted before the deadline this evening at 5.
Hey, yeah, this is from Julie Piper. She says, in reviewing the agenda for today's city council meeting, I see that code enforcement is up for discussion. I would like to provide the following input regarding this topic. For the past 2 years, I have reported a property in our neighborhood that consistently does not follow city code. I've reported the weeds, entire lawn area is weeds, no grass, that are above a foot tall several times. This property is located on the corner entrance to 2075 South from Bluff Ridge. Not only is it a blight on our neighborhood, but it affects pedestrian traffic as the trees in the backyard have overgrown the fence, obstructing sidewalk to the east. In the winter, they park their 7 vehicles over the sidewalks, again obstructing public foot traffic. To date this year, they have cut the weeds 1 time. Most recently, I submitted a complaint, and when nothing happened, I submitted another complaint. I received a reply on the 4th of September to my second complaint, which reads as follows. And she includes an email from the code enforcement officer, Leonella. That email says, Julia, I appreciate your patience with me. I understand this is a major frustration to you, but please rest assured they were notified last week, Monday. They were given notice to comply. I apologize you feel as if I do not do my job, but please know I am still doing it. Even though I've been battling COVID for several weeks now with no voice and other symptoms, I promise we will get them in compliance sooner rather than later. As always, you have every right to express yourself in any way. I hope one day this bond will change. For now, I will keep doing my best as the only code enforcement officer for the city. One day we will have another to help ease my hefty workload as the city is outgrowing me. I apologize for the delay and I hope they get this taken care of before they get their fine in 2 weeks. Thank you. I hope you have a better day and I apologize for the inconvenience I have caused. Mrs. Piper goes on to say, to date, the property owner has done nothing about the weeds. The reply from Mrs. Robles is similar to one I received from her last year. Her response is unprofessional, and I resent the implication that I'm the problem or having a bad day. I don't need to know her health history or that she feels overworked. The fact is, code enforcement doesn't seem to be happening, and that is a problem for residents who are good citizens. That's it.
Okay. With that, I will close public comment, and those items that were discussed in public comment will be addressed on the agenda later. So now we have an informal presentation from Antelope Island State Park Manager Wendy Wilson. Thank you for coming, and we're looking forward to you sharing what's new with Antelope Island with us.
Sure. Just pull that up and I'll just kind of talk through real quick. So I just wanted to introduce myself to the council. I'm the new park manager at Antelope Island State Park. I received that position in February. Before that, I was the assistant park manager for 10 years. So I've been at Antelope Island for about 13 years. Now it's in park naturalist as well. So I've been there a while. But just wanted to introduce myself as the park manager, and just do an update on what's going on at the park. So I know I probably won't take 15 minutes, but if you have questions when I'm done, feel free to ask. So right now there's a lot going on. Right, Antelope Island is seeing 1 million visitors a year. You're probably feeling that as well because they're all coming right through Syracuse. And just with the addition of 177, we expect that visitation to go up as well because it's a nice easy drop off right to the doorstep of Antelope Island. We are in the middle of a construction project of our visitor center with 1 million visitors. About 10,000 of those are school kids. And for the past 8 or 10 years, we haven't been able to host school kids in our visitor center because it's just too small. With general visitors and then 150 school kids coming in, we had to displace, unfortunately, those kids and just keep them outside. We didn't like that option, and so have been working for the past 2 or 3 years to get an extension, an addition onto our visitor center, which we received the funding from the state legislature to do that. In addition, as the legislature often does, they'll kick in an extra little thing that says, well, while you're doing that, why don't you do this as well? So in addition to the expansion of the visitor center, we are also getting a large format theater that will, this is an image of that. It's a 30 by 70 foot screen. It's going to be huge, 200 people sitting in that theater. It's going to play a documentary called Secrets of Great Salt Lake. This was all done by outside agencies and our director, Joel Ferry, who's the director of Department of Natural Resources. The proceeds for the film will go back into habitat and conservation work for Great Salt Lake. So that's part of that. If you want to just scroll down a little bit to show some of those other pictures, I'm sorry, I didn't have a PowerPoint. Brody just threw those in there for me. So in addition to that theater, we'll have a large conference center that will seat 200 people in chairs and about 100 people at round tables. We're hoping to do community events, weddings, receptions, corporate retreats, pretty much anything to be able to use that space. It will be public space. When it's not being used, there will be some interpretive displays in there for people to learn about the history of Antelope Island becoming a state park. And then the hallway, this is the entrance way into the new building. There will be a large gift shop, about twice the size of the current gift shop, which will be great to host those 1 million visitors. Information center, and then a lot of really state-of-the-art exhibits and displays that will help educate people about Great Salt Lake, about Animal Island, about the wildlife, about the history. So it'll be a really cool, like a 3D map to orient yourself to the island. So a lot of good interpretive displays there. And this next one is just kind of an outside view. Look at that theater, standing out like a sore thumb right there, but you'll definitely not miss the visitor center. Right now, we just, people will come and say, well, where's the visitor center? Because it does its job. It was meant to be kind of blended into the hillside, and it does. Now with this, there will be no question on where our visitor center is.
Do a big mural inside.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's all still concrete. The original building is concrete, and the designers wanted to kind of pay homage to that and reflect that and to make it match. We're not tearing down the old visitor center, we're just adding to. The current visitor center will become education center, and that will be the place where we host those 10,000 school kids, university, research, high school K through 12 in there as well. So and then you'll be able to have, there's great views. There's a lot of glass on this building, so the idea is to bring people into the visitor center, teach them about Great Salt Lake and Antelope Island, and then encourage them to go out and explore. So there will be a lot of glass, and it'll be beautiful views from up there. The bottom one there is just kind of the entry into the theater. Again, just some the architects did a beautiful job on that. Right now they are under construction. The anticipated end date is going to be October of 2025. So just a year from now. I'll be surprised if they're on track. They won't be, but we'll keep we'll keep hoping that they do. We'll just keep. Well, right now they're 5% complete. So they've just started laying the footings for the theater. So that's kind of fun. And then coming up in another month, we'll be doing our annual bison roundup, which takes place every year. Antelope Island has about 700 to 800 bison on the island, and every year we round those up for the health of the bison, and then to cull excess bison. The island can support about 500 bison through the winter, and every year they have about 200 to 300 young. So we're going to be selling about 200 to 220 this year at a public auction. So if you need some bison in your freezer, you can come and bid on that. But that happened at the end of October. It's a public event. You can come and watch that. If you never have, come and watch it. We do an expo. You can, come and get food and learn about owl pellets and bison, and watch the bison come into the corrals. We'll have about 300 riders on horseback doing that work. So that's a really, really fun event. It takes us several months to kind of put that together because there's a lot going on. That's about it. Was that fast enough? Anyway, just coming into the kind of this is going to be our projects for the next year, right? We're trying to bring kids back into the building. Bison Roundup. We have Spider Festival every year. If you've never been to Antelope Island during the summertime, I know some of you have. It's spider season, right? Spider season is basically July through August, kind of maybe into September. But we do a Spider Festival. Open to the public. People love it or hate it, and come and we have about 1,000 visitors come to that every year, so they love to learn about the spiders. And then just a lot of other really fun events that we do out there. We try to bring people into the park to help them kind of get over the negative aspects of Antelope Island, because we all know that there are negative aspects of Antelope Island, but there's also a lot of really, really cool aspects in it. We like to try to be a good community partner, bring people in and help them come through the town, do late night things, and hopefully keep them here overnight as well. So, that's just a quick and dirty update from me. Any questions?
Yeah, so
I have lots of questions too
Okay,
after
good.
him.
All right.
okay, I'm gonna ask just my one question.
Yeah.
I've been out to most of your events and I really enjoy it. It's wonderful. Been out to the Bison Roundup a few times. My one question, is there anything that we can do? It seems like, and I understand that it's just logistics in a lot of cases, most of the bison end up getting sold off in lots, which is hard for
An individual.
an individual. I went out there twice, 2 years in a row, like thinking I'm gonna buy a bison this year, and it's just almost impossible for a single citizen because they end up in lots of.
It is, it's hard. And so it used to be when that program first started, there were no buyers. And so it was really, really easy for the individual to come and buy an animal. And that's, the market's shifted a little bit as bison meat has become more and more popular.
It seems like restaurants are buying.
Yeah, the bigger
herds.
lots are coming in and they're buying them all up. So we do try to sell. So with the cows, those are generally the cows are the ones that are usually people can buy for meat. They're sold in lots. And if they're gonna do them the way that, so with the calves, the way they do those calves is they sell them in lots, but you can just choose to take one or two.
Hmm.
And I think they do the cows the same way. So like you bid, and whoever's the winning bid can either choose to take all of them or just 6 of them or 3 of them. And so if you were the winning bid,
Half
it'd
of
be like, I
one.
want 2 of them.
Yeah, it
So-
seems like
But
I
it is harder also. I know it is.
I decided I
Yeah,
need
like a
to,
percentage amount, like
I know.
10%.
Can I get half of one? Is that possible?
You can go
Yeah.
with somebody and buy.
yeah, that seems like what I need to do is.
The restaurants bidding against them and.
My second time, I was like, okay, can I find some other citizens to go in with and
Yeah,
maybe we
that's
can all
usually-
get a lot?
Yeah,
It's tough.
It is tough, and it's even harder now because we used to have contracts with butchers that would come out to the park. To shoot the animal off some big quarter, and get them ready, and now you have to haul the animal off. live.
Off the island,
Find
kill
a-
it, yeah.
find a butcher.
That was another obstacle. Not that I,
Yeah.
I thought, well, I could take care of one part of that, but then
Yeah,
the
yeah,
getting them off the island was another.
yeah, that is, that
Anyway.
more than anything, I think makes it harder for.
But I love the idea, so I hope that at some point we can get back to
Absolutely, I agree.
where individuals
I
can
agree.
participate.
Yeah, I agree, and I would love, and I talk to our wildlife biologists every year about like holding a few for individual sell, like, it's a public auction, so we can't say. These big companies can't
Right,
bid
yeah,
on them,
right.
right, but it makes it a little bit easier if you can sell them as individuals.
Yeah, all right.
Okay,
Jordan.
few more things.
Yeah.
Thing number 1 is you're not selling your sunsets well enough. I would say one of the highlights of living in Davis County
Yeah,
is going out there to the West Beach and just watching the sunset over the lake.
I
It
think that
is,
was a given.
it is just, I didn't even know about it. I went out there one time I knew there was a sunset, obviously, but over the lake on that West Beach was just incredible. It's magical.
There's never a bad sunset. Some
Maybe
are
we should
less great
co-host
than
an
others, but they're
event.
always-
Well, sure, let's do it.
Sunset, it's something or not.
Festival,
I
yeah.
tell people to wear like if you're going out there during bug season,
You know
just
what?
wear like a bee hat.
Go,
It'll be just fine. And
go in March. March is
March.
like the perfect time.
March
It's
for now.
or now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't been out there this year, you should do at least one sunset on the West Beach a year.
Beautiful.
Second thing is, this is kind of a weird request, but
Sure.
at the GSL park over there off of I-80, they have a really awesome video that I had to find and rent from our library to watch it. And it was like, it's one that like talked about all the myths and rumors around the Great Salt Lake.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you've seen it. If not, I can probably find it.
Yeah.
You should put that in the theater too, because it was good enough that my kids were complaining they wanted to leave, so I had to go find it and rent it.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you should totally have that video there too.
Okay, thank you.
It was good enough that your kids wanted to leave during that.
it's good enough for him, that's all that matters.
I'm trying to understand your.
Yeah, and maybe it's an adult theme, like it's.
Like, Like, did you know that there's a rumor out there were whales in the Great Salt Lake?
I'd heard that.
And like, there's this whole video about all of these things, and it was awesome.
We can make up some more.
Great Salt Lake monsters.
Yeah, so it was phenomenal, and my kids were just tired because we just been hiking out through the entire thing, and kids get tired.
Oh, good.
Other thing, this is my one complaint. So some of the signage out there is getting a little sun bleached.
Mhm.
I know there's one on Ladyfinger Point. There's some signs right there that just you can't really read them anymore. I want to know what's on them. I'm one of those guys that reads all the signs.
Yeah. So the interpretive panels. the
Yes,
information
all of
panels.
those.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can get those refreshed?
Yeah, we're working on those. Like, I've got a park naturalist, and that's one of her jobs is to get those.
Okay,
I
because
think she pulled that one that's really, really faded down. And so I know she's working on getting that.
I love all of that stuff. I
Yeah.
love to read all of those. I think it's a fascinating history and just learning all of
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
And then my only other thing, is there any way we can get a road down to the actual lake? My wife
Right, me
decided,
too.
we're like, that doesn't look that far away, so we get out and we start walking across the West Beach, and you
still-
continue walking across the West Beach, and then you walk some more across the West Beach. I know, I think we walked like, what I swear was like 5 miles to actually play in the water.
Felt like it, yeah.
Is there any way we can get like a little trail? I realize the lake fluctuates, but.
It does, so, when you're on that beach, there's that kind of almost a berm that's right there,
Mhm.
like, off the main beach and then where the water is. I think at one point that was a road out too. And one of the things that I wanna do, you know, division gives me the money is to improve that road again and let you actually drive out.
That would be awesome.
So
But-
we're on the same wavelength. I want that as well.
But the island is amazing. I love it out there. We went out there during that big thunderstorm we had a little while ago, and that was incredible.
So I just have one thing, we're trying,
Yeah.
our city is trying to corner the market on Halloween, like
Okay.
the scary time. And you guys have a haunted situation out there.
Apparently, we
Maybe
do.
we could get together and do a thing and host a thing out there or something.
This sounds awesome.
A Halloween
At the
thing,
ranch.
yeah, that gives some scary cues-ness out there.
We're doing a spooky fest on Saturday. It's gonna have a little bit of that. but
Is
mostly
that
it's
something
for
new?
kids.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, I don't like scary stuff, I don't know what it is
Yeah,
about
that's
people like
fine.
scary stuff, when people chase that scare like crazy.
Brand new events.
Brand new events.
Brand
As soon as I hear something ruffle, I'm like, nope.
So yeah,
Out.
I don't know if you've seen our, we have the scary cues for these next few months. So we'd love to coordinate with you guys and
Yeah.
I mean, we have
I'd love
a
to
unique partnership between the two of us, so yeah.
I'd love to work with you guys.
When is that?
This Saturday, so it's the very first year we're gonna try it and then see if we can get bigger next year.
What time is it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's just like, I think it's like 10 to 2, so it's just a short part of the day. And they might go into the evening as well, because she wants to they wanna do some ghost stories.
You said it's the Spooky Fest?
You know, I bet if they would have done that in conjunction with pumpkin walk, that would have kicked off like crazy.
Let's,
Let's talk.
So-
we got this.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got it.
Okay, no, that was it, thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come anytime.
I
I
will
love
be,
it out there.
I will be reaching out to you. There's one other thing that we've been working on that we might be able to partner with, but that's for another
Dark
time.
skies and
Sure.
stars.
No.
Love those.
Are they, besides the building now that they're doing, did they project into the future that they might be building something else more? Anything else in the?
So right now, it's just that, it's really tricky at Antelope Island, we want to be able to build for growth. And also we wanna be able to keep it
Natural.
natural, right? People come to Antelope Island to see wildlife, to access the lake for the peace and quiet.
Family
So it's just a
pictures.
tricky balance of not wanting to overdevelop because people, I mean, they'll come out and they'll even, so we expanded our campground and we put 3 tiny houses out there, like little kind of mini cottages. And while people love them, we also had a lot of people saying we're kind of really, so it's really touching. So we do want to expand for growth, be able to like meet that recreation demand while keeping that balance.
No outlets, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, maybe a mini.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
We'll be in touch.
Okay, thank
Thank you so much, Ann.
you.
Okay, our next item agenda is our semi-annual report from Celeste Hopkins, our victims advocate. And
After you
will-
should totally go find a comfortable recliner.
As-
I've been watching you in that chair.
Okay, as we bring Celeste forward, yes, please come forward. I will just mention that this was a topic of conversation at our last Council of Mayors. And I was pretty pleased to say that we have this. There are only a couple of cities in the county that do. Those that have are very high on how much it's brought, and of course, we're very high on what it's brought to us, but very positive. So other people are looking to follow our lead.
Hi, it's me, Celeste. And guest number 2, Viviana, she'll be here soon. So today I wanna, usually my presentations are a little bit more about stats and how everything is going with like stats wise with the city and all 3 cities combined. But I think this time I decided to do it a little different and see, kind of want to talk more about the improvements and what I've been able to accomplish this year. I did provide you guys with a packet in case you guys wanted to look at those stats in more in depth, but I did add a chart just with a basic summary of what's going on. On slide number 2, the only thing I really want to touch on that is the reports that were ran were submitted obviously last week. So just kind of wanted to give you guys an update in the last 8 days. So for FY25, so the current stats as of now, September 24th. Combined, we're at 121. And then Syracuse, we're up 5 more, which is 50. Clinton 50 and Sunset just 21. So that's kind of where we're at now as of today. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm always happy to, answer those questions and how I get those numbers and so on. We can go to slide number 2.
Well,
Or
when the
3.
population rises,
Yeah.
the violent crimes, the family crimes, victim crimes, they all rise.
Mhm. So program improvements. So the thing, I'm actually really proud of what we've been able to accomplish on this end, which is usually victims are not notified of declinations when a case is declined by a prosecutor, either if it's the county or a city level justice level case. So I decided, and it's something we've actually talked about in our quarterly victim advocates meetings, how we can improve that. So I decided to try an Excel spreadsheet where I just keep track of all the cases that are being screened. It can get tricky with 3 cities, but luckily Syracuse is one of the easiest, and that's because, Mr. Winchester is my supervisor, so the communication there is obviously pretty good. So I'm able to keep track of those cases a lot easier with Raquel as well. So by doing that, the spreadsheet really focuses on making sure I write the details of the case, and then the victims will receive a notice of screening, meaning these are the charges that are being screened with the city prosecutor, and some resources. And then the second letter would be either a declination letter notifying them why the case was declined and that it's been declined. And then if the charges are filed, then I go into my regular routine where I let them know what charges were filed, and just answer any questions they may have and go into the court procedure part of the program. So I think this is really great because I've been able to, my numbers have slightly gone up, and it does, add a little bit more of work. But I think it's really nice for victims to be notified of exactly what's going on with the case, whether it's declined or not. So that is where we're at with that. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about is the new resources that I added to the programs list. So this one's not new. I think I might have mentioned it at the beginning of the year, what the victim service folders are all about, but I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember a lot of things these days, so I apologize. But the victim service folders, basically the officers are the ones that carry these folders, and depending on the scenario, if it fits, then they'll be able to provide this folder with all the resources the victim may need. So if it's mental health counseling or domestic violence counseling, anything, whatever they may need, it's all in that packet. So earlier this year, I want to say it was Assistant Chief Anderson who brought up the idea, maybe Chief Atkins, I can't remember again. But they asked to translate the folders to Spanish. So with the help of the, I believe her title, I asked her because I wanted to make sure everyone knew that I did not do this alone. Mariana Luna, she works at the PD, up front. Administrative professional, I believe she said is her title. She helped me with the translation of all of the folders, which was a lot of work. She helped me with making sure everything was aligned. She would edit if there was an error with me, a typo or anything like that. So we were able to accomplish that with Mariana's work. So, help, which is awesome. So now we have Spanish victim service folders that includes all the same resources, just in a different language. And then 2 different things that I did change on the victim service folders are I added like a personalized safety plan. Basically, it's focused, on our resources here in Davis County and me as a victim advocate. And then I also added just like a little map that shows them how the justice misdemeanor court procedure works. So if this happens, if they're filed, if charges are filed, this is what's going to happen and so on. So it kind of just explains to them what's going on with the case and what may happen in court. So there's that. Am I speaking too fast?
No, you're doing great.
Perfect. I think I've improved, but it only took 5 years. Okay, so the first program that I added to the programs list is the Asian Association of Utah. They're located in Salt Lake City, and I ended up running into, well, I kind of was familiar with them from when I used to work in Salt Lake City, but I've never had to work with them here in Davis County. So when I was looking it up for a specific case, yeah, I ran into them. And so the reason why I thought it would be cool to talk about is because the city is growing, county is growing, and you never know what's going to happen. So might as well be prepared, right? Like if we get a weird case, like I have the information they may need for that specific victimization. So the Asian Association, basically they focus on, they assist any victim in the state of Utah. So it's not Davis County, it's the whole state of Utah. It focuses on human trafficking cases and refugee and immigrants. So they help with, as you can see, they can help with translation services. They work with a specific interpreter company that they offer like over 50 types of languages that they can help these immigrants and refugees. They help with outpatient mental health services and DV services, housing and employment guidance, which I think is awesome because it helps these victims become more, adapt more to our society here in the States, especially if they're from, you know, somewhere other than the US. So that's a cool one that we've been able to add. And then we have to remember too, human trafficking cases often involves other crimes within the human trafficking. So it's like rape, forcible sexual abuse, kidnapping, all those type of cases. So they offer the same resources that our nonprofit organization program offers here in Davis County, but they kind of that's their only focus, which is a nice part. So that's one of them. The next slide is 6. So this one, Safe at Home program. I actually learned that this Utah is actually a little behind on this. We are one of the last states to actually get on board with Safe at Home. Their goal for this is to be able to provide a victim of domestic violence, human trafficking, sex assault, and or stalking a substitute address if they don't feel safe. So this program is a 4-year program, and they can reapply every 4 years, or they can end the enrollment anytime before that 4-year period. So the city's attorney's office is the one who keeps the records of these victims, survivors who apply for the program. I just got certified in this, so I'm able to help. In order to be able to apply for the program, you need to speak to someone who's certified to help them with that process. So I did get that certification. I believe it's for 3 years or 4 years. So it is under the Utah law, and I did provide some links if you guys kind of want to look into it a little bit more. And this is just for purposes to enhance the safety plan for survivors. So it's not just it's not a safety plan, it just enhances that, so it can be added to the safety plan. Police department, they can use it for driver's license, court records, police reports, and obviously to receive regular mail, and school enrollment and record transfer. So basically they can use it for anything, and all of that stuff just gets forwarded to their actual address. So it just provides them a little more sense of security and safety. My maternity leave plan. I thought, why not bring that up? So clearly I'm pregnant, and my last day is October 22nd as of now. So I always talk about, every time I feel like I provide you guys with a update on how the program is going, we'll talk a lot about like building those relationships and working as a team. So I'm very lucky to be able to have a really healthy relationship with the advocates around neighboring police departments and agencies. So Alicia Fisher and Danielle Rodriguez are the ones who kindly offer to help me when I am not working, and Teresa Allen from Clearfield City as well. So I still have to put an email together, and I'll be sending this email to everyone, just saying like, it's an automatic email reply saying like, contact this person and so and so. And I've already been working with every agency to, they know kind of what's going to happen during that time. And then the number one would be Safe Harbor Crisis Center, which the officers are very familiar with as well. I plan on being back to work the 1st or 2nd week of January. And then I do, don't want to like overuse the advocates from the other neighboring agencies. So it would just be for emergency situations, but they're definitely always here to help. So I want the city to feel comfortable to reach out to them if needed. And these are just the links I provided for you guys to read more about those two resources I talked to you guys about.
Excellent.
Any questions,
Does anybody have questions?
concerns?
You're awesome.
Thanks.
We're grateful for you.
I'm glad you're there.
It's not easy. You do it well.
No, it's not easy, but I do love it. And again, it all comes back to teamwork. And I always have to give a shout out to Chief Atkins and my boss, of course, who's always listening and always takes my word into consideration when it comes to cases. So I really appreciate working for Syracuse City and just everything I've been able to accomplish here. Let me know if you guys need anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
The next item on our agenda is a planning item. So I'll invite Noah up. This is a request for the redevelopment agency, so consider that for just a moment, to fund a multi-tenant sign at Heritage Plaza. So go ahead. There's a request that came in. Noah, brief us.
Yes, good evening, council. Hopefully you've had a chance to read the packet. We have a request for around 24,000 to help replace some signage. She included a letter explaining why she felt like this was a justified expense. The RDA has funded signage before. The Wendy's sign was paid for by the RDA. Also, the corner signage on the tower was paid for the RDA. This particular project area, the SAD CDA, nothing sad about it, but
Especially like counseling area.
South Antelope is what it is.
I know.
Syracuse Antelope Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does have money in the account as far as commitments go. We have two buildings, the EOS building and the Arlo project building that could use incentivized money, but it's performance based. And so when they generate money, then we'll take money, so it's not going to take any money out of the account necessarily.
EOS already has an incentive. And
Yeah,
I
they
believe
have
the Arlo
to.
does as well.
Yeah, we've already
They have one
authorized
in
those.
place.
Yeah,
That's what
okay.
I'm saying, like,
Yeah, got it.
we have two buildings that are authorized to receive
Yeah.
incentives if they meet the conditions.
Yep.
And then we recently paid for the cross access easement parking lot improvements with Don's Meats. So yeah, the applicant is in the audience as well.
Okay, so the question is, council, do you have any questions about this or any discussion you'd like to have before this goes to a public meeting for vote?
To be perfectly honest, I've always wondered what was in that parking lot. Cause there's the signs, you can't,
Okay,
so I get it. 100% I get it.
I mean, typically we've used these funds to attract more
New
business.
business.
New business has been kind of the rule of thumb, but it is a possible expense if you decide that that's the better way to use the money, but the ones that we have previously authorized are to try and get new things here.
Looking through this, I think I would like to partner on this. I don't know that I want to just outright pay for the new signs.
It's a possibility.
So I'm okay, definitely helping with this, because I do think there's a mutual benefit to us and the businesses. My only complaint is these signs are really boring.
It's not your parking lot.
It's not my
It's
parking
not.
lot.
Jeez, it's like medical office.
I
type
know.
Stuff, they're supposed to be boring
Then they're perfect.
and they're bold letter.
Okay, so any other comments?
But I do think there is room for partnership here.
Any other thoughts or discussion?
I agree with Jordan. I didn't, by saying I always wondered what was in there, I didn't mean I was completely for this. I just always wondered what was in that parking lot. So I understand why they're doing this and asking for some assistance. And if that parking lot was a little more identifiable, maybe people might actually go there
I mean, I will say that,
I think
Also,
they're doing-
I think that the things are being utilized, but there are some businesses in the back.
yeah,
That it would be good to get some more visibility to.
Okay,
So I do think that it would help enhance, but again, there's already businesses in there. We're not gonna be attracting new ones. We're just.
or so
hoping
are
to
the
get
businesses
additional
in there
folks.
not, would it help them be more, is this something that would help them be more successful? Or is it just to update the sign?
There has been some high vacancy in the southern building.
Mhm.
Specifically, like you said, the one that's kind
In
of
the
further
back.
in the back, a little more hidden. Some of their tenants have reached out to the owners and asked for better signage because they feel like they're just kind of buried back behind there.
That's,
I think there's room for some assistance, but yeah, I don't think I'm willing to pay for it outright.
okay,
me too. So what are we willing to do, kids?
I mean, I would love to hear what they have, again, I'd like to work with them and sit down with them and figure that out. I don't-
okay, we'll do that between now and the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on. Next thing is discussion of the recycling program options. We have come a long way with the recycling program and all of the different things that we've been told and have come about, and some continue, some don't. So let's talk about where we are today and what our options are. I'm gonna turn the time over to Steve to start.
Okay. Appreciate the time, Mayor. I'm assuming you guys have all read through the packet, so what we'd like to do is just go through each of these bullet points as quickly as possible and get your feedback. First one, we're talking about ownership of the cans. Currently, our black and green cans are owned by the city. It's not entirely mandatory on blue cans, but we recommend that, so I'd like to get your feedback on the ownership of the blue cans.
I think consistency is the easiest part to manage.
I think when we talked about this earlier, Mr. Roberts said it was better to own them ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more efficient, right, yeah, because we already own blacks and green cans. Then it would be complicated. If someone said, okay, now I want a blue can, if that's what we do in the future. Then we say, oh, well, we don't do those, you're gonna have to now work through someone else. I think it would just complicate, as far as the customer goes, I think it would just be more complicated for the customer. So for efficiency, I think it is more efficient for us to own them.
The other part to remember for that is, as I'm assuming, our goal is to at least get the rebate that's offered. There's some specific criteria in that rebate. One of which is the city has to own the can. Like you can have
Waste
you
management.
can have anyone buy them, but after, I think is it 5 years?
The end of your contract.
Just the end of the contract? Oh, this is.
Sorry.
Colette from-
Okay.
So once you're done, you have to own them, and then that qualifies you for a $15 rebate per can when you're buying them up front. And there are some other things that we'll talk about as we go through these steps, but I would recommend that we end up owning them, or we just buy them outright. Own them.
Well, I think it makes the most sense.
Me too.
Okay, next bullet point is the proposed service frequency. Most, if not all, the recycling services in the county are every other week. We could always do more. There is a higher cost for that. We're recommending every other week.
Agree.
Again, consistency with other programs makes it easier to bring costs down, so.
So who are the servicers?
So it would be,
Is it still Robinson?
well, it
Well,
could be.
it could be if we get more of a contract.
It could be a separate carrier as well, separate.
So
service.
Robinson offers it.
We would
Yes, we
recommend a RFP bid for it.
Yeah,
Make sure we get the best price possible.
and in the future, I think that what we should do is combine RFPs so that we could get a combined savings. But at this point, we are under a longer contract, so we would be bidding probably to match the end date of a current contract. And then put them all out to bid together so that we could realize some scale.
Okay, next bullet points are gonna be the bulk of our discussion, so there's 3 different proposed options. And you could probably mix and match some of these or do a blended. The first one is a bundle, which would be basically you charge a flat rate, everyone gets a black, green, and blue can. if they opted to not have any one of those three, they'd still be charged the same rate.
Can I add one more comment on the bundled?
Yes,
In order to get the full 15, you do have to have a bundled program. If you go with an opt-out, it's only $10 per can. Well, I know you're thinking $5, but $5 over 10,000 cans.
No, I don't think any of us would.
so yeah, the second option is opt out, and you could do this a couple different ways, where we just give. Basically, you're in unless you're out, so you give them like 3 months, 6 months, whatever you want to give them as far as a window to say, no, we don't want this. We'd probably do it by quadrant. I don't know if we can do it citywide. That way, if we need 2,500 cans in a quadrant and only like 500 opt out, we can move those to the next quadrant. So we're not stuck with a lot of excess cans. A little bit more predictable on ordering cans. There is also an option. I know Jordan brought this up about an opt out, kind of a hybrid, where you give a window at the very beginning for people opt out, and then once it's done, it's done. Every future service would be a mandatory, and there are some cities that actually do that.
The district actually requires, that is the district's definition of an opt-out is, in the beginning, you can opt out, but any new move-ins would be required to get a can. That's the district definition of an opt-out program. So I think
It's
that's
like grandfather type thing.
yeah, like if you have one here and you really don't want a can, you can opt out now. But if you don't opt out now, you won't. Anyone coming in new to the city would not have that opportunity.
We're not gonna teach an old
So-
dog new tricks, we don't have to, but
In
the
fact-
puppies are required.
In fact, right now, the way that it's written, even the cities that have current opt-out programs, they need to have their opt-out end on, I believe, January 1st of the upcoming year, and after any new move-ins would get a can.
So if we were to do everybody gets a can, why wouldn't we just do everybody gets a can? I mean, because you can never control how people utilize it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, there'll be people who put stuff in the wrong can just because they don't want to comply, and that's life. But if I mean, I don't know how we would really deal with an opt-out in the future and say everybody who moves in has to participate. That's kind of contradictory.
I agree. I would actually propose we do the bundled. It makes the most sense and makes it the easiest for the consumer, but I do get some people really don't want to recycle.
Then
Let's time stamp this conversation, so when we start the complaint processes start coming in, we can just forward this video on.
I don't, I mean, I like the cost savings of the bundle, but I don't like the customer experience of the bundle.
Yeah, that's what
Saying,
I'm
hey,
saying.
you have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to have one of each type
Sure.
of can.
And I get that.
There are certain circumstances where like townhomes, we can barely fit one can right now. The townhomes behind McDonald's, so there are some challenges there that we might have to exempt out of a bundle.
Don't they have like a space for like the dumpsters over
They don't
there?
have dumpsters on them.
They should,
Yeah,
a
so-
recyclable one and a regular.
And they're serviced by the regular,
They're able to fit
Probably
one
so.
black can, just barely.
Same with all the ones at Edgewater, by Yola,
Yeah, there's a-
so we'll probably need to
Probably
have
most
some
counties.
kind
Yeah,
of
they
contingency.
don't have
in
enough
there
room for
that.
more than one, yeah.
Why
That's
we
what happens
used
when
to
you do
have-
high density,
Yeah.
folks.
That's what we used to say, that had to be a
Yep.
minimum frontage.
And we wouldn't have to worry about commercial or apartments because they take care of their own.
So is the
Can you
bundle the
tell
only
me
one that
about-
offers the full rebate of 15 and then, sorry, does it scale down from there?
Opt-out is 10, and I think it ends there.
So, but it's citywide, it's not. The
But,
the bundle, if the bundle is available citywide, then the citywide gets the discount. It's
Yeah.
not per person.
Correct.
Right, it's
Yeah.
us
So we
It's
scale down.
whoever's
this-
buying the can.
purchasing the cans,
Yeah,
So but in the opt-in, to get the $10 rebate on the opt-in, it has to be it has to be a one, or not opt-in, but opt-out, or which one was the,
The
Opt-out.
opt-out is a $10 rebate.
but that you can only offer it as a one-time opt-out, like at the beginning of the program,
That's the hybrid.
to get that.
Can I phone a friend?
What is the cost this is gonna be per month, that, per,
We'll have to figure that. You
Because
estimate.
It all
That's
depends
what-
on the
Oh, yeah.
program.
if we're gonna do the opt-out or not, because if you're getting ready to put an extra $12 charge on senior citizens
So what,
that have lived here for 30, 40 years and they don't wanna recycle, you know, I would give them an option to opt
what
out.
they've found, in all of our studies that we've done, on average, and to include a recycling program, if rolled out in a bundled type scenario, it's usually between $4 and $5.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so they actually did a survey. I don't know if you remember the presentation we saw. They actually set up a survey and several people from Syracuse called in. And I think 75% of the respondents to that survey said as long as it was less than $5, they were good with that.
Yeah, me too.
So we have that data that we can share.
So let me give you this information as well. We actually have an opt-in program in our green waste. We've had it about 15 years. And we're about 20%, 27%
Opted in.
opted in.
Opted
That's
in
after
programs
15
usually
years.
don't do well.
And right now, if you want to opt into the green waste, it's $7.85. So somewhere between $3 and $4 on a bundle versus 7 or 8 on an opt-in. Opt out, you're probably in the middle, somewhere $4 to $5, $5 to $6.
I feel like it's very reasonable to do a bundle.
Well, and the big thing is that we all have to realize is right now, the only thing that's keeping our current landfill open is the fact that we actually transport about half of the waste to 2 other landfills far away from here. Otherwise, like if we stopped transporting garbage, our landfill would be closed within a few years. Fair. And so we do have a cliff coming that once we have to transport everything, it will not be a $5 increase. It will be $10, $20 increase for the service.
I know you said this before, but I can't remember. What do they project that the recycling program, how long will this extend the life of the,
So again,
if everybody in Davis County?
if everyone recycled, it's still gonna be a drop. So what we're planning to do is we've said we are going to do whatever it takes to keep the landfill open for about 15 more years. So what this means is we would actually still keep it at 15 years, but we'd be transporting less. So it would reduce the cost of service. So it's tough to say how long would it extend it. If we keep our current transportation rates, and which are going up, we keep our current transportation rates and then just do the recycling and put less in the landfill, yes, we could definitely extend the landfill.
Okay.
But as of right now, we are already fighting a clock, and we're fighting that by taking it somewhere else. And we really need to stop. We need to figure out a way to do better.
I mean, for me, I'd probably like to see the difference between the bundle and opt out and what that looks like.
The only hard part there is you don't know how many are going to opt out. You always get a quantity reduction in price. But if you have 25% of the people opt out, it will be a more expensive program.
And that's kind of, I think, what we would be looking at, because who's opting into the green.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Here's the
be the
thing
same.
that I think we should consider, and that is even with an opt-out program, we can't control people being true to the program. So, you know, if we dropped out, if we said, okay, everybody's in, everybody gets a blue can, will still choose not to follow the
We'll
program.
throw the
Because it is a human,
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
there's a human element there. So
Yeah,
so it's only as good as people will adopt and participate. My point really comes down to, we have a much more likely chance that people will participate if we do send a can to everybody's. Well, I mean,
No, that's
you're-
exactly it, because
we're forcing them to
you can
house a
opt
can.
in now, I would not, but if you tell me I have to have one, you bet, I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna throw all the boxes and all the things in it. And families with kids, the kids like recycling too, but if you don't tell them they gotta have it, then okay, well, I don't.
but with the bundle, are we saying you have to have a green as well?
No.
Right now, we're not saying we have to bundle that one right now.
I don't want that.
The big thing here, and this is gonna be my
I would use it if I had that.
we owe it to our kids pitch. You know, we have kind of a once in a generation chance here to get this recycling right. And if we can take it and get recycling to as many households as possible, it will only be better for our kids. If we go back and kind of say, well, you know, we might make some, we're gonna irritate some people and let's just make it. Heaven forbid we say an opt-in program. I would say that we failed.
I mean,
I'm for the bundle program, just in the safety planet aspect,
Yeah, I agree with that.
because I
I
feel
think we
like
owe it to our kids.
that's something that we don't talk about enough, how we are so destructive and just destroying the things around us, that if this is something we can do a little bit to the cleaner side of things, we should do it.
Okay, so. I'd like to hear from a couple of the others. that-
Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, we like this.
Who's in charge of educating the people on how to use the recycling?
Jordan,
Well, I think we all are.
Because for instance, you've got to rinse out every can before you throw that in the trash. You gotta rinse out that tuna can. You gotta rinse out that tomato can.
So Colette is actually the media specialist. She's there, Kara.
yeah, we love our, get it.
Okay, we'll get that, I mean, we're gonna have to work together.
But yes,
Not
every
just
can.
us, we'll also be working with schools to educate the youth and I mean, we'll work through a lot of channels.
Every can will come with a packet and a sticker saying, here's what to put in this can.
Oh, I love that.
So that's in,
Oh.
bullet point number 8, where we kind of talk about, we don't go into great detail because we don't know at this point, but definitely we would involve both Kara and the Wasatch Integrated District to roll it out. Give
they're
it out
providing
3
that
to 6 months in advance so that people are aware of it and know what to expect. So
I mean, so far, Paul's brought up a good point that if we allow people to say, I just don't want to participate, then you don't have the pushback of you forced me to house your can that I won't use. Okay, but if we suggest that everybody gets a can, then maybe they'll start using it. I mean, it's just a matter of, I don't know. I wish there was a way. Here's what I think would be the most economical and is not available. But if there was a way to have smaller cans for recycling so that they could come more frequently, or, but the problem is the trucks are designed for one size can. That's why you don't pick up as often, because you don't fill it as often, but it's still bigger.
So are we gonna require these apartment complexes and stuff to get a recycling dumpster
We
out
need
there
to-
also? Cause I think we need to do that.
That's
as well.
separate.
That is not addressed by the
It's not-
district
yeah.
currently,
But it will have to be
we,
addressed.
Yeah, cause I feel like that's a whole lot
You're
of
right.
residences that need to.
That won't be participating.
Exactly, and that's a big deal.
You're right.
that if we want to include that in all of this as well,
I think we should.
we can definitely talk
We're not
about
gonna
that.
walk out in the snow and dump it.
But I get, my point is I do recognize that I do recognize that giving people a chance to exercise their freedom to say, I won't participate, is kind of American, and we kind of need to allow for that. The only problem is that if we just, if it makes it more expensive to say, people, a handful of you who just want to make your point by not pulling out your blue can. I mean, you can choose not to put anything in it. You can choose not to take it to the curb. It's just, you could also choose to do it. And the other thing is that people move. And so if the can's there, I mean, I inherited the cans. When I moved into my house, they weren't new. I inherited what I had and that's what I used. And if it's already there, people will understand that's what I'm supposed to use. And so
Let's be honest, Syracuse is kind of turning into a little bit of a hippie California area, like South Syracuse. I mean, it is what it is. I'm from California myself. It is what it is. And they like to recycle too. So like I said, I would do it if there was a can there, but I'm not gonna call someone and have them bring it to me. But if there was already one in my driveway, I would recycle. I don't wanna have to think about it though. That's extra mind stuff that I don't wanna add.
I think it's reasonable for our city to have a recycling program, and
Yeah.
when you move into the city that you get a black and a blue.
yeah, you just get a black.
We're trying to keep things clean. We're not
And
trying
if
to
you
mess
want a
things
green
up
can, you
anymore.
can request one, but really the issue with the green can is it comes down to, does anybody produce enough to justify having a green can? Not everybody does. Some people have very simple green waste, and
Thought of one other thing we haven't really talked about here is
there are bullet points we haven't gotten to yet, or this.
we're not going to.
We'll get there. It's only 7 o'clock. We get time.
The one thing that I don't see on here that we should discuss very briefly is the more we recycle as a community, the more discount we
Yeah.
get. So right now they offer a rebate. We just got our statement that said, hey, your green case produced this much this year that was diverted from the landfill. And we actually got, was it a refund?
It's a credit.
Credit.
A credit.
It's basically a credit, yes.
And so that is the incentive, if you want to continue pushing the green can. The nice thing is about the green can, it's really heavy.
I didn't bring up the green can to be against it. I'm just.
I
saying
know,
that
but I'm just
it
saying-
doesn't have to be a part of this.
I'm
I'm just saying tonnage is what the
Yeah.
the
So
discount is based
where do
on.
they send the recycling to?
The
It
recycling
goes
goes
through
to
the
the MRF,
Okay.
and then we actually, they're able to
Sell it off.
sell it at market value. Like you can get like $50 a ton for cardboard. I don't know what it is for aluminum, but things like that, and it fluctuates greatly. It's not, you can't fund the program with that, but it does help offset costs. So the more we can recycle, it also reduces costs for the district. So same thing with the green waste. The green waste is taken, turned into compost, and then that's sold off to landscape or things like that. And again, that reduces the price to run the landfill. The more we can divert, the better off we are.
And recycling's maybe a better option, say, okay, you have to, this is coming with your black can, you need to use it. Like the green waste can, I tried the green waste can, I don't
Yeah, I didn't
produce
feel it.
green waste, I mulch my lawn.
Yeah.
I just couldn't use it, and then.
And mulching is actually better than green waste.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm like, I switched back and.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not putting that much effort.
But yeah, but that is a great point. That's why I think everyone produces recyclables.
Yeah.
But yes,
So-
if you're reusing your green waste, that is a better use than even compost.
Yeah.
So I want to reach out to Brett. You see things from a legal point. What do you think? I mean, is there any issues that we should be aware of encroachment on people's freedoms here?
I have looked at it in a legal basis. I would vote for the bundle. I would want to see numbers first.
Okay.
I think it's for the betterment of the community as a whole. I think it's a good idea. From my
Bundle is
perspective.
easier to predict prices. For sure.
It's easier to manage because it's all uniform.
Just another thought, there are about 4,700 homes that have a second black can that. Not saying they have to get rid of that, but for
They
me in
might.
particular, I might switch my blue for a black, which is actually a savings on my utility bill. So there's some avenues there for
That's a
people
good
to actually
point.
save.
There's a lot of that garbage is recyclable.
Yeah.
We would love for black cans turn into blue cans.
No. That's a good point.
If we go the bundled route, we will have to we would recommend coming up with a hardship policy for people that may not be able to afford it. Making an exception for those few that maybe are time with their utility bill. So that's.
And so those people would still get the can, but just would,
Maybe.
And those are the ones
maybe
we're worried about.
yeah,
So that's,
yeah, and
Maybe a reduced price or something.
and the state, or is it the state or the country already has an established hardship policy in place for
For energy, for heating
energy, and I
Yeah.
believe also property tax, if I'm not
Yes.
Yeah,
mistaken.
abatement,
Yeah,
seniors,
And
yeah.
so if we can just align with that, if they can show us they have that, I think that would be a good line to follow for our hardship policy. If they already qualify for those
So one of
programs,
those, and they qualify for that,
agree.
Okay,
reasonable.
so let's move on to the next bullet point.
So pricing structure, yeah, we'll get some estimates. I think we've got some pretty good data on bundle already with the $3 to $4. I think that's about where we'll be sitting, but until we formally bid it out, yeah, it's still up in the air a little bit. Last bullet point is the rollout plan. Robert kind of alluded to this a little bit. We're recommending a 3 to 6 month campaign, working with the district, having Kara put some information out. And it takes us time, obviously, to order the cans. That will be the lead time for that. Recommending a spring rollout for the recycling, maybe in March or April. These are all just tentative dates, so if you're not comfortable with those dates, we can push it, change the timeline. It's up to you. I think we have to by July 1st was the recommendation from the district. I may be wrong.
So there is no deadline now anymore, but for the grant money, the recycling partnership would like a pretty firm commitment on what cities are rolling out in 2025. Cause that's, we have basically the funding for 2025. Sounds like you guys are being in the spring 2025.
I think we'll be
direction.
fine.
So it sounds like you'd be good for the grant money. And yes, the incentive, we anticipate cities with the bundle program will divert about 15%. So with your green waste incentive, you'll add another 15% back to the city.
So I think that the easiest way to manage this is we spend the winter months. Promoting what we're going to do and dealing with any feedback from the community. And then we roll out cans after this year's snowplow, because that will be, that'll give us time to adjust to everything. So.
Can I ask one other question really quick?
Please.
Is there a cap on the number of rebates? Like we have 10,000 cans in the city approximately. Is there a cap on that?
Yeah, no, the recycling partnership knows how many households, so they have budgeted grant money if you guys for a universal program for your city.
Thank you.
Good.
One question I had was just on the green cans. When you're talking bundled, it's just black and blue. It's not the green.
Right.
For now, I think it'd be black and blue. I would like to get green
And then we'll just run the
eventually.
green the way we are right.
I think some people will return a green because it might be that. You know, they don't have need for that third can. I don't know.
I think green makes way less sense for a bundle.
I
Yeah,
do too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people even in my neighborhood, I think there's 3 of them that maintain their lawn at such a level that they actually throw away the compost it creates. The rest of us, we don't, our lines don't even go the right direction, you know? Like they're just all.
That's fine. I just wanted to get that.
yeah.
So-
I would like to push it some more. As we're talking about all of this, I want to make sure the green waste is included in our discussion, saying
It's an option
it's
that you
an
can opt in
option.
for that.
Simply because, again, if we can get a higher participation in the green waste, it'll help reduce the cost of our program.
I
Just
feel like
because green waste is heavy.
Will actually put their yard waste in a black can too. I don't think any of them have a green waste.
Yeah,
can.
that, and see, for that, we're actually we're
Come to
being
think of it.
penalized for that.
Oh, I believe. I should probably go
So-
talk to them.
Maybe when we advertise the
Yeah, we'll
recycling
try
program,
to-
I can say, hey, you in.
We also recommend,
For separate,
If you.
you know,
cut your
charge, you have the
grass.
optional to do green waste can if you don't already, so. We could like group it together.
But I think that the trend statistics are more mulching blades are selling. So
Yeah.
I think people are moving towards mulching. It's healthier for drought. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna move us on. We will come back to this after we've digested what we've said here tonight and kind of formalize a proposal. This won't be the last time we talk about this one. Thank you. The next is review and discuss the city code enforcement strategy. This is something that I have been working with staff on to try and see if we can do better, because as the city has grown, you know, it used to be that there weren't that many complaints to file, but the city has grown considerably in the last few years, and the complaints have grown considerably. And so we have to kind of look at what we can do. Now, I will tell you a couple of things that Noah and I have been working on. For example, one of the things was, is there any way we can shift resources to help get faster response times? And in some cases, that has been helpful. But it is a large caseload, and the city is growing more and more, and there are places that are regular offenders that we have not addressed frequent enough. So we have to kind of consider, what do we change?
We start ticketing them.
Well, what do we change? Because that's one way, but what do we change to get compliance faster? And I think that we probably have given too many warnings, too many layers of warnings. We need to start getting faster to the punishment part, because there are people who clearly say, oh, how many more warnings do I get?
Keep
Because they'll
telling
take
someone
everyone.
you can't do that with no recourse. They're gonna keep doing what you're
That's
telling them. they
exactly my
can't.
point. So the next one would be, do we need to consider in our next year's budget, because we don't have money this year, but in our next year's budget, do we need to augment code enforcement? And I'm bringing it to the table this early because if we can't answer these cases, I mean, I get a lot of phone calls. And some of them are not things that we manage. I mean, I've had lots of complaints about UDOT land, and we give warnings to UDOT, we do a
Can we
lot,
ticket them too?
So,
we do,
so
and we
should.
have.
I actually
That would
think
be cool.
my opinion is warning, penalty, and then we actually contract with someone to abate it, and then we send them the bill.
Oh, what do we do? Where's
Abatement.
Robert, don't we ticket it, don't we tack something on to their utility bill for something in the
We do
winter
for
time?
water
In the,
in the winter time.
is it for something we tack on, like if they don't come in and pay it, it goes right onto their utility bill?
You can file a lien against their.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Their.
Now
is that what
we're
you're
lien against
talking about?
property.
yeah, if they have unpaid
Put on that.
funds. So I
It is
guess
the water.
one thing that we have learned through the water program that I would bring to the code enforcement in general program is that when fines get steeper for repeat offenders, people seem to pay attention. Well, first, it's like, oh, $50, I'll just pay that one. But when it starts to get painful, they will start to change behavior.
I just find when you contract with a yard agency to go out and cut down all the weeds and all the lots, when we just send the bill to each property owner.
The one problem
That
with
goes very
that is
quickly.
that if the abatement just goes unpaid, we just added a city expense.
So it is the water ticket that we just tack
Yes.
on utilities. So if it went through code enforcement like that and it's something in your yard. Like if we have to send out a team to mow it, then can we tack it on to their utilities?
You can file a lien against the property for that amount. It gets added onto the property tax bill. Paid in November with property taxes.
Okay, thank you for that.
So- Without knowing
I like that.
the exactly how the operation works,
Mhm.
what I guess in my mind, adding a warning adds another step and adds another thing. Like I interact with a lot of different cities and
Yes,
with things. Like some cities say, hey, you're in violation, you have until this date to rectify. If you don't rectify it, you get a fine. And the onus is put on you as the property owner to provide evidence. I don't know exactly how we do it, to provide evidence that it's been completed. To me, that is a more streamlined effect than saying, hey, here's your warning. If it happens again, then this. Hey, you're out of compliance. Here's your deadline to correct. And here's your
Isn't that what we
penalty.
do
That's
now?
what Layton City does. I got it, when I lived in Layton City, my backyard got a
I
little
believe
overgrown,
that
I
is
got a
what we do.
warning.
Because
And it had to be done by a specific day. Code
We
enforcement
get-
came out that day that it was supposed to be done by, and it wasn't at the end of the day, and they issued me a ticket, and I had to go.
I had trees out of compliance this summer, and I got a little thing that said,
Hey.
here's the rule.
let's
Here's how
take
you
a break
fix
for a
it.
second. Let's
And
now
then
tell us what the steps are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that we're all
No.
on the same
Where's
page.
the code enforcement?
We have been very lenient with people and we are giving warnings. And then we'll do a notice of violation that gives them a date. So, that's kind of been the policy in the past. Our goal is to bring people into compliance with the ordinance. But there are some bad actors out there that aren't budging and, maybe it's time that we move the needle a little bit further.
So,
I
Turn the
on
street
that
a little
day of the notice of compliance, then we can issue ticket. We
Yeah.
should start issuing
Yeah.
ticket.
I actually like the idea of making the notice of non-compliance,
Yeah,
the
it's
warning,
The warning.
and a date already when it has to be done.
Yeah, I like that too.
Cause people will push the envelope. like,
Because when
they-
they're in non-compliance, Noah, are we going out to re-inspect everyone or?
Oh, yeah, it's a ton
Hey.
of staff time and work to try to keep following up and tracking.
Why,
people.
why couldn't we
Yeah.
implement some type of, you need to provide photographic video evidence, as this has been
To prove
resolved?
you came into a compliance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
bring it in,
interesting.
I just got
Otherwise, we
pictures,
just
what I
send
have
out
to
the
do.
bill. If they don't do it.
Yeah,
send us
if
Well,
they
that's
don't-
interesting. We have
That's what
not
Layton
discussed
City
that
does.
before.
It's a good idea.
This sounds just like what Layton City does. We should look at theirs because it's a no guessing game with them. Like you have to bring in a photo that's timestamped that shows that you did in fact do it, but you still have to pay your ticket if you were issued one.
How much is this ticket?
$110.
How
Well,
much
there's
is it
this.
for the city?
It was.
Well, we have a code enforcement violation fine in the fee schedule is $100. But we also have an abatement budget of, I think it was like $5,000 that we've never touched.
But but
So we
when
could
we've
spend it,
looked at
but-
that, we've talked about usually businesses that just seem to ignore warnings. Problem is that sometimes those businesses, you could eat that $5,000 off.
We should ticket them too.
Ticket them
We
first.
should,
And then.
But there has to be,
do
there
the
has to
abatement and
be,
get your money
there
back.
has to be a way to enforce that penalty, otherwise. It's no more powerful than a warning if they say,
yes.
oh, I got $100 fine, nobody's ever gonna try and collect it from me.
So
Well,
let's
and it can
divert-
add up too, so if it's over
We'll lean on
time.
it. And it
You
goes
have a
on
lien
your
on the
taxes, that's what
property.
he said.
All right, so let's let the legal weigh in. So talk to us about enforcing especially multiple fines. How, do we have to wait for the tax year to? Or is there a way that we can,
Hopefully they
We
pay in
could do any
advance.
number of things. We could go to small claims court.
okay,
We could hire a collection agency.
Expensive.
We could try to collect on our own and use staff time to do that. Also, or we could just tack it on as a lien and let it go to the property taxes.
I feel like that's the easiest way, and if,
does sound easiest.
yeah, just let them pay through the property tax, they can get big back.
How many of these are real problems? I mean, it says that you get 10 a day. How many of those 10 are really issues? That's one question I have.
I mean, we have the bad actors. There's probably a couple dozen bad actors in the city that are just kind of. We bug them. They'll mow it. And then another complaint will come in, we'll bug them. Couple weeks go by, they might mow it. So the neighbors, they're actually in compliance, but the neighbors are still mad at them because
Because it waits for a complaint.
nasty
For so
house,
long.
yeah.
So if and it's usually the same, like you said, same bad actors, frequent flyers, if we call them.
Mhm.
Any of them, they're like elderly, you can pass it along to the LDS church and they'll send a word out to take care of it. So those things, all that we have that option too, that'll usually handle it. The wards are really, really good about taking care of the elderly folks in the neighborhood as long as they know about it.
So are we trying to resolve the bad actor situation, or are we dealing with these 10
I think
complaints a day?
I think I have two
Both.
things that I'm trying to solve here. Is one, I do want to get resolution on things. And number two, I want to try and take some of the workload off of, is it Leona?
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Leona, because
overloaded.
if she's going back and forth to all these properties, that's time. If we can, I like the idea of doing a warning with a deadline and you're in charge of proving you're in compliance.
And the other part of that to reduce manpower, are they reporting this just on our submitted ticket?
Ticket,
Is-
yeah,
or I can't remember, can we upload pictures to that?
Mhm.
Do they upload
Yeah.
pictures of
they
that?
do.
Yeah,
So if we can say, hey, if you're submitting a complaint, we need pictures, set proper expectations that, hey, if you can submit photographic evidence of the violation, it can be resolved more quickly. Have an auto response that says, hey, please allow, setting expectation is important with citizens too. I don't know what's happening. Maybe some of this is happening already.
Most people do not, they want to remain anonymous. And they won't give us any of their information at all. And so it's just kind of like, they just want to throw out that complaint. And then there's no way for us to respond to
Follow
them. But then if the problem isn't resolved, then they're still mad and they might call the mayor or
So
post on social media or something.
here's one of the
Stop
things
being
that I'm
charged.
concerned about, and that is that people need to feel like they have been addressed. The anonymous part of it makes it very hard for us to track that you got a response to your complaint. And so in some ways, I mean, we already have a policy that we don't have to tell the violator who reported them, and we generally do not. In fact, I know for years it was strictly outlawed. You never tell who reported something, but I think what changed was they could grandma it or something, but as long as we allow for it to be anonymous, we have a hard time defending against all the people who call and say, I submitted 5 tickets and no one ever responded. Well, if it was anonymous, how did
Submit
you
a ticket, You
respond?
get confirmation, right?
Are we required to allow
We're not.
anonymous?
Oh, we're not required to say that we responded, but I feel like that's the best part of customer service.
Well, no,
is-
but are we required to allow them to submit?
I don't think we
anonymous?
are.
I'll get rid of
through-
that.
I don't.
You don't what?
We don't have to tell the people who complain about them, but at least.
But you need to.
You need to own
but
up
you
to
At
it.
least know who's complaining, because people can just
Yeah.
start
People try to weaponize code enforcement, and that's what
so
causes it to
bad,
be overworked.
so,
Yeah.
if you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Non-confrontational
what's your reason?
people.
Why do you
Here's-
think it should be?
Here's the real issue that I feel like happens with that, and that is the legitimate complaints that should get the attention are put aside for all of the weaponized complaints that are not even
Who's
valid.
gonna make your day
You,
back?
you just add all this workload.
It's
that
what it
is
is. I've
not-
gotten it a couple times.
And it has happened, because it happens a lot. We
Well,
have people go
luckily
out
I
there
know
like,
her. She just
they're
called
not
and
in,
says, hey, this is a
they're
problem. and I fix
not
it.
actually in
If it actually
non-compliance.
There's a lot of those, and through the system, you can, like on the other parts of the city system, you can go in without logging in, submit a thing, like a street lights out or something, just boom.
Yeah.
But a lot of times with the code enforcement, like she needs to follow up, and sometimes they need a letter into like the property or whatever. And like I was saying, a lot of people will create a login, but then we made it required to leave your information. Let's do a bogus email or something. It's just like,
That's
so they
fine.
kind of game the
That's
system
fine,
just to
but
be able to leave
yeah,
it.
like,
Here's how you avoid that, and that is that you say inaccurate information, your complaint will not be taken
Case
seriously.
closed.
Case closed.
yeah,
If you, and I do not think it's a problem to force people, because it allows us, it forces us to be able to account for, did we get back to that person? And that's the part that I want to solve. I want every complaint to get an answer within a reasonable time period. And I want an action to be taken within a reasonable time period. And unfortunately, some of these get delayed by the weaponization and false claims, by the things that were inaccurate or incomplete information. It's, how terrible is it if they give the wrong address? They go out there and they see it, but they have no idea to clarify the wrong address. And it actually was like the next door neighbor or something.
A lot of wild goose
A
chase.
lot of wild goose chases.
waste of time.
Let's make it more efficient. So, council, it's up to you what you're gonna do, but these are the problems that I'm bringing to the table from what I hear as mayor. And I do get a lot of calls, and it almost always starts, which is really frustrating, is I've called 8 times. Really? Because when I call, I'll tell you this happens all the time. People will say, I've called the police department 12 times. Well, I'll ask Garrett. He'll say, I have absolutely zero record of that. Now, does that mean that they've not called? Well, they didn't leave enough information to make a record of it. Because sometimes I get calls that are as short as, is this the mayor? You got people speeding on 500 West. Deal with it.
So.
Okay,
I
yeah,
feel
great.
I
That's
feel like
really helpful.
If it's a crime, like, and you need to report something anonymously because your life might be in danger, that's why we have 911. But if you're gonna complain about your neighbor's grass, say it with your chest, you know, like my neighbor's grass is long and they don't listen, so can someone please make them come cut it? I don't think the anonymity of it all is.
I think that if it's serious, that you are protected.
Well,
Nobody
yeah,
has to
you're
do
not
that.
gonna go tell them that, so Kevin next door said is something about your grass, but at least we know, like.
No matter what it is, you're
Answer your
protected,
questions one
but
more
I
time.
think that you have to have accountability.
So what's your concern with anonymous?
So the big thing is,
Or not having an anonymous?
I think, and again, as long as you can make it very clear that your information will not be disclosed. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people don't want to ruin relationships with their neighbors, but there is a problem and they don't know how to resolve it, and we're their hope. And they're worried that by reporting it, it's gonna get worse, there's gonna be retribution,
But if
and
I,
so,
but if I were, sorry, keep going.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Sorry.
So I think the big thing is we need to figure out is we need to make sure that people know that this is not going to negatively affect their relationship with the neighbor they are trying to preserve a relationship with. And so if we can make that abundantly clear that this information is not shared, it is not given out under any circumstances.
But you have to tell us who you are.
But in order for us to follow up, we need your information. I'm okay with that. But until you can guarantee that, you need to provide an anonymous option, because people want to be a good neighbor without always feeling like the
I can
tattletale.
understand that.
can we withhold that, or can it actually be grandma? 'Cause
We can withhold it under grandma for a certain period of time, as long as the investigation is proceeding, as long as the criminal or civil process is proceeding, but there comes a point when none of that
Applies
exists any
anymore.
longer, that it is then grandma'able, and there are 5 criteria in the statute. And every time we get one of these, we look at all 5 and say, yep, 4 out of the 5 apply, we're not giving it out. But when none of the 5 apply, it's grammable, so at some point.
So
yes,
there
you can
is
find
a
out.
point years down the road, maybe, but there is a point where it's no longer private.
And we can
Probably
also,
multiple
So on that point,
How big you gotta be to be like 5 years later, be like, I wanna know what neighborhood.
I would not underestimate some people.
we can also put a
That's a
statement,
couple of petty I aspire to.
we can put a statement on the forms too that people fill out to submit a complaint that just informs them that it could eventually be a public record, so.
If that's on there, they will absolutely choose the anonymous option.
Well, I don't think the anonymous option's working because it makes it so
Or-
you have no record.
Or you say on there that if you're choosing to submit it anonymously, you have no reasonable expectation of a response from the city, and
Or
we're
you
not
have
gonna
no-
follow back up with
Do-
you.
Do we have any sort of a prioritization ranking saying, hey, these types of requests get handled first, these second, these third? Because in that case, an anonymous one would
Sure,
fall to the
you can
lowest.
say anonymous, you can state anonymous will be handled last.
So right now, my understanding is that if it involves safety, it gets an immediate priority.
Sure.
So anything that involves safety gets put to the front of the list. If it involves just.
I'm hoping that safety, they're calling, well, I guess.
Well, like
safety.
a blocked visibility
agreed.
Yeah.
or an intersection
Sure.
problem or, things like that, they get the top priority. But you do get to the point where it's like, I think my neighbor's weeds are too long. That is not a high priority. Because it's something that
That's
if
a
it's not
visual
fixed
appeal
today,
thing.
it doesn't impact your tomorrow very much.
Cause I mean, this is just me. If I had a problem with a neighbor with a code violation, I would go talk to that. My first thing would go talk to that neighbor and say, hey, can I help? Can we resolve it? And if that neighbor is just like, no, I don't care what you're saying, I'm not gonna do it, then I don't really care if they know that I see the code violation.
Well, but the thing is, and I'm only speaking because I've actually had someone talk to me, and they had neighbors who were very violent. Like, the police were always at their house, and they were honestly scared. They were doing all sorts of things illegal, and they were very scared.
But yeah, you're gonna call and say their weeds are low?
But the thing is, I think in this case, they were actually,
I thought the priorities are a little questionable.
sure, well, there was lots of things. I'm gonna avoid putting too many details in this.
There's too many.
But needless to say, not all people are great neighbors. And not all relationships with neighbors are great.
That's true.
And so I think we all want to believe that we have a relationship with our neighborhood and we go over and say, hey, would you take care of this? And they'd be like, sure, neighbor, I'll get right on that. I hope we
I don't
all
think
have that
any of us
relationship.
have
I don't think we all have the relationship, but I'm saying once I've exerted that and tried to do that, I don't care.
Yeah, like
But
barking dogs.
if you knew, if you knew your neighbor might come burn something in your lawn because they were mad at you.
Oh,
Then we have
which
law
then becomes a
enforcement for
crime.
that.
True, but I'm just saying, people fear retribution.
Okay, so,
How many of these enforcement actions occur per year?
well, I know that we have sometimes 10 to 12 a day.
No, not reporting.
You
How
mean
many-
like the
how often is
escalated
something
ones?
actually done?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Because if we're dealing with something that's 5 times a month, that's very different than something that's 50 times a month.
Yeah.
The complaint
I don't
that in trying to solve this, and I'm gonna try to answer that because I don't think we have any specific answer. But in trying to deal with this, one of the feedback points that came to the table was I could be out 8 hours a day doing just site visits for all the list of complaints that I have and not even get to the phone until 5 o'clock and start picking up messages. And the frustration on the other end that I get people complaining is that I called at 8 in the morning and somebody didn't even bother to call me back till 8 to 5 at night. And so we put in place that we have some extra staff that might be able to at least respond and say, I've logged your case, or we did acknowledge your phone call. That's a helpful step. But when you've got people who are concerned that you didn't even respond within a week, because that's what I've heard a couple of times is I didn't hear anything for a week.
So we talk a lot about,
Yeah, you need to hear anything.
what was that?
Do they need, like, when
My-
someone calls and complains to the PD, do you call them back and update with like, oh, well, we followed up on, gave them a ticket and things? I wouldn't expect,
I don't think
you
you have
know,
to tell
like
them.
call them back and tell them, oh, we went and looked and this is what we're doing. Well, you told us about it, you gave us a tip and we'll take it from here.
I
You don't need a phone call.
How many of
I
these
think
are
you do.
legitimate
I
complaints?
don't think so.
Here's why.
Almost I mean, a lot of them,
They are.
Yeah.
yeah.
What, the-
Especially weeds
the
this year.
weeds?
Here
Yeah,
it's
a lot of
weeds.
weeds.
My neighbor has weeds.
Sometimes it gets reclassified, if it's like a urgent thing, like it's.
I put in a
Local
fix
to the
it
police.
just last week for a street light that was out.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not a
code
code
enforcement.
violation.
I know, but I mean, it all comes in the fix it ticket system.
Yeah,
Maybe
The
we need a
top three,
link specific for code enforcement.
But
we do,
It is.
But one of our issues that we've, and Mayor, you've talked about this, is how do we implement technology to
Yes.
make our people go further? What, I mean, you can have auto response emails that tells them, hey, it's been logged. You could even require that if you're going to, if you want to report a city code violation, you have to do it through our website. We don't take city code violation things or
a lot of people
complaints
call the
over-
phone, only
over
the phone.
What was
A
that?
lot of people only will call the phone because they're not tech
we
savvy, you
could
know.
force people to use the, and I'm not saying we
Just
But we'll
should,
type it in for
but
them.
we could force people to use that, and then they get a case number that they can look up. And then they can see, oh, code
you-
enforcement
you
read
can
this
s-
at this point,
You
they
can see where it's at,
addressed
you can
it.
require
Yeah.
them submit photographic evidence, there's so much that I think, that can be taken off
Mhm.
the employees. Docket by implementing
Right, she's
technology
going
and
out.
implementing process that will funnel things through technology.
Yes.
And the reason why I was leaning, but Paul's actually helping me go the another direction here, but the reason why I was leaning towards, why do we get back to people? The acknowledgement that you were heard and something is being done is a big part of it. But I like this, let's talk about the technology, because
Yeah,
in most things, if you file one online, you can file it from your phone. Most people have a phone. You file it and you could say, I want to file or record this case number and I want to look it up. You can look it up and see
I
where
feel
it's
like we
at.
should genuinely look at Layton City's system, how they do theirs, because everything we're talking about right now is the things that I had to do like 10 years ago when I got a ticket for my backyard from them. It was all, well, a lot of it was online. They didn't come back out. I had to go show them proof that I did it and pay the ticket. So
You shouldn't have to pay the ticket.
well, no, but I
That's
didn't do it, well, I didn't do it in the
Well,
time
you're checking
frame,
in my
so I
fixed
had to go to
ticket.
court,
Oh,
pay the
yeah.
ticket and show them that I did it after, I still got it done.
So
So,
I want to go back to one of the reasons why this is at the table.
We already have that, fix it.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's, no,
And
we're-
it responds,
auto
and it
emails
tells you
and
the
stuff.
dates, and you can go and.
no, we're talking about.
I got a
like,
response that said,
enforcement.
your issue has been closed.
Yeah,
Oh, and they're
okay.
so
I
good.
feel
Yeah.
peace of mind.
They're good. They
Okay,
put-
so-
they put branches down, so-
One
But,
of
like,
the
if you
issues that I want to,
stop the ticket, like how do you, make it easier for, technology can be used in both
What-
sides of this.
what I want to be able to get to here is I want to be able to get to a point where we can say we have some kind of evidence that tickets are responded to within 48 hours or 24 hours. I mean, I'd love to say that we did it same day,
Probably
but
gonna be 70.
that might not be- well, it might be, but if we were able to say to people who call in and complain and say that I've left 5 messages, we can say, if you filed on our website, those get responses within 48 hours, that's our standard. Then we know where we're at. The problem is we don't really know to tell people that they are getting addressed.
And like I said, most people will call in and they'll call into the city, and we've been just creating a case for them so that we can still use the software, but they're not gonna get the updated. But like Krista was saying, we do have that system and it has the ability to notify people as things progress, but if you're, yeah, and you can upload pictures, and I like the idea of prioritizing based off of it. Cause a lot of people do not upload photos for us, and then she has to go out and
See
find
what
it,
series
and
it
half the
is.
time she can't even figure out what it is.
So yeah,
Find
put a
it.
statement on there that said anonymous submissions and submissions without photos will receive a lower
The
priority.
lowest priority.
A lower priority.
The absolute.
Well-
Barrel, lowest.
Because
Hashtag Paul Watson.
We may never.
Hashtag Paul Watson.
Signed, Councilman
Okay.
Watson.
Potentially just a.
Stand on it.
Yeah.
So.
Good evening. Are you taking comments from your viewers?
Tickets, like
Yes.
fine
Yes.
them, businesses, residents, if you've gotten a
Yes.
warning and you just continue to throw it to the side, just fine them.
Okay, so here's what I'd like to do at this point, because we've got on much longer than we expected. I would like to ask staff to follow up after some of the discussion about some of the things that we can do to streamline the system. We'll come back with some proposals for another discussion and say, these are the things we think will work and will get us further. Generally, the part I'm trying to fix here is I want to be able to tell people that we've improved this, that you are being heard, that you are getting it, you know, because bottom line, when I can't tell people that I even know that we dealt with it, it's hard for me.
I think part of that proposal has to be, this is our.
Good evening. Are you taking comments from your viewers tonight, please?
We are not.
How did that happen?
They should be blocked.
I'm a citizen enjoying the meeting and appreciate what you're talking about. I just want to add two things quickly. The
No,
security
I'm
and
sorry,
safety
this
of
is
your
not a
staff
public
should be
comment, sir.
paramount, please.
This is not.
The safety of that woman should be your primary concern.
Turn that off, please.
I do not see that.
See where it says participant?
Oh, there,
You can-
that way.
Yeah, that one. And then go you.
Which one?
Yeah, you can you. Sorry.
We cannot. I'm sorry, but we cannot take anonymous comments.
Mayor.
That's,
Can I just-
yeah, I'll recognize Chief Atkin.
So just for, I mean, I have code enforcement experience, so I just want to see kind of maybe clarify a couple of things and ask some questions that might help the discussion with it. So
I appreciate it.
Colin, first on that lien. It seems to me that in our meeting, when we talked about this, I'm hoping I remember this right, but I thought we said that the lien doesn't get paid every year with the property tax. It gets paid when the house gets sold.
No, the lien can be tacked onto the property tax bill, but the problem is your property tax is assessed on January 1st. It's not due until November 30th. So if you got a lien this week, it would hit, and if you knew the amount of the money and you got the lien this week, it would be tacked onto the property on January 1st of 2025. It wouldn't be due until November 30th of 2025. It's a simple solution, but it's not a quick solution.
Better than the one we have now.
And it certainly could be and would be, if the property is sold during that period of time, yes, it would be paid at the closing.
But it would have to be resolved even if the property wasn't sold.
Eventually, yes.
Okay,
Pay taxes.
that's
But when we
good.
say eventually, we mean within a tax.
Within
year.
a tax
A year-ish, yes.
They could not pay taxes up 5 years
before they get.
Also true.
If you wanna get to the petty point of.
Just,
Okay, so-
just curious, I mean, so when you talked about the different ways of like small claims court and all of those same things, just regardless of how that answer really was, it's like. It's not quick and it's not going to always be effective to get the
Yeah.
money back, so you have to figure the city's actually spending resources out of general fund to fix the problem.
That it might not get back for a
Might not
while.
recoup within that
Or that
budget
you
year.
didn't actually get, you know, the compliance that you were looking for, so.
We should avoid that as the solution.
On the charges, on filing charges with this, so it's been brought up, like, can you send in a notice of compliance? Well, what if you didn't send in the notice, right? And so then what do we do if within, let's say 15, you give somebody 14 days to fix it, on the 15th day, we're talking about filing charges. You're gonna file charges, but I would believe that in order to file those, you would want to know that the property wasn't still in compliance. The fact that it wasn't in compliance 2 weeks ago doesn't make it not in compliance
I didn't get
today.
that.
I think you just say there's
I
a,
didn't get that.
there's a $5 on-site assessment fee.
No, the
Or you
burden
can submit
should be on
pictures for
them.
free.
The burden of proof should be on them, like, if you don't
That's,
bring it in 14 days, then
that's
your
not the
ticket
way
is
it
issued.
works.
In a civil world, yes, the burden of proof can be
Yeah,
on them.
but
And if
that's-
we go the criminal route, the burden is always on the government.
Yeah,
Yes.
so in that case, I guess what I'm saying is if we're going to file a criminal charge, I believe we still have to go out and inspect the property before the charge gets filed to show that that day that the charge is filed, the property is still not in
But we
compliance. So
could've-
we're not gonna eliminate the follow-up.
So
Yeah,
that-
oh,
We
that's
could
it.
assess a
That's
site
what I
visit.
got. On 14 days, he came back and checked, and that's the day you get a ticket.
But that's criminal charges. We're talking about civil penalties.
could
do Right,
Civil
civil
penalties is
without-
what I think were,
Isn't it-
I wasn't thinking criminal charges.
I would just do a $5 site visit fee, or
I
you can
think more
submit
than
and
that.
25.
avoid that.
$25 minimum because you gotta take that person's time for
For
an
an
hour.
hour.
$100.
I want to know how many of these are actually being enforced each year. So somebody knows that answer. I'd like.
How many of what?
out of all these complaints, where is action actually taken?
Yeah, how many are we resolving?
Like how many tickets?
How many get resolved?
Right.
Oh, I mean,
Tickets
it
issued
takes-
versus tickets resolved.
it takes, in the staff report, it takes about 9.4 days for, on average for,
How many per year? If there's 3,000 that are done, somebody knows.
I could find that information. I just don't know how many
Be interesting to see.
exactly have, like
That's
how many
really good.
cases were closed in the last year?
How many instances was action actually taken?
Like how many tickets were issued?
Right.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
We haven't been writing tickets. They've just been writing warnings.
Like I said, I got a warning when my trees were out of compliance and I just went out and fixed it and it was done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of them are being resolved. I think most people don't realize they're out of
It's
compliance.
not just a warning, we
Yeah.
want to put a warning with the date of completion and then hefty fine.
But I mean, we did this, I had a fire inspection in my office, Golden
Mhm.
came in and I didn't realize I had to have my fire extinguisher inspected. He gave me 14 days to do it, he said, you can show me photographic evidence that it's been done, or if we have to come back out, I think it was like a $75 charge.
That's right there. That's perfect.
We already have that somewhere for the
Like,
fire
it's
department
the
at least?
We
For
have
fire
it for
department.
code enforcement.
Oh, okay.
This is,
Money
That's
motivated.
perfect.
is anyone else frustrated by, we're not, we have this for code enforcement already. We have a very clear ordinance for code enforcement. And it lays out warnings, civil penalties. We have a fee schedule that has all the civil penalties.
We just need to follow.
We just need to administer that ordinance. This is like a 10-minute conversation. Sorry.
Where were you? Well, I-
Okay, 10 minutes.
Okay, wait a minute.
Well, thank you, Cassie.
All right,
He's right.
I mean,
Okay.
we do. It's
which
just
is great.
true.
The problem would be that
Cassie
they're
doesn't
not.
steaming.
I really am actually.
That's up a minute ago.
Feel free to chime in.
We just need to make sure that something's being done because there is a lot of frustration in the city. And that's my goal, is to end that frustration. Because we can't report on these things. So let's get it done. We're gonna come back and we're going to have data of how much is actually been done, I want estimates of how long it takes to get to a ticket on average, on how much.
That's in the report.
It is.
Okay, all
yeah.
right. I'm trying to list all of them. I want to know how many tickets get resolved each year, how much we actually have to go to penalty of some sort. How much is, how many of them end in a warning? How many of them actually go to a penalty?
And how many tickets
Very
have we
few.
written?
Very few.
Very few.
That's the
And-
problem.
And that's
That's why we
so
want
the
to-
point is like, we gotta sum up. X plus Y plus, where are we? Because the general consensus has been for a while, call the mayor because nobody's doing anything.
That's what I do.
And I could do with 10 less calls a week about code enforcement. I really could, so.
Yeah.
Especially since I have no idea when they start
So I
usually
have
telling me
one
the
question.
problem and not the location. And that's always
Drives by,
difficult.
rolls up the window and goes, cut that tree.
Okay. I'm gonna move us past this because we're way
I
past
cut it
this.
that day.
We could have been 10 minutes, Cassie. I'm laying it right on you.
That's fine. I'll take the blame.
Sometimes you can catch her like flustered, if like shifting in her chair that she knows something that we're not talking about, but I
It's
didn't see
okay.
that this time.
All right,
Just be
Unless she
quiet.
left the room.
all right.
Now she left the room.
Walk away.
Okay, this next one I am going to say is also on here because I get a lot of phone calls and complaints. We have a lot of people calling and complaining that we don't address door-to-door solicitations. We have a policy. This is one that I've researched a lot because I get a lot of phone calls. We have a policy. You're supposed to come in and get a license. Most people do not. So they don't register. Okay, most people do not register. There are a few people, and it seems to always be the same group of people in the same neighborhood, but there are a few people who are violently opposed to door-to-door salesmen, even if they don't come to their door. Technically, if you have a no soliciting sign, or if you just say, I don't want to talk to you, that person is supposed to walk away. And for the most part, they do. But I know we are taking quite a bit of time of calling an officer out to the scene who usually talks to the sales representative, who's usually an underage person or a younger person trying to make a living, and they're not doing anything actually wrong other than maybe they didn't register. So the point is we gotta figure out how we're going to change the outcome of, because it doesn't do any good to find the kid. What we have to do is find the business, and our ordinance does not allow us to find the business. It's just find the representative. They'll just replace the representative and come back tomorrow.
So change the ordinance. Find the business, give them a ticket.
So how do we do this and can we? Because we've been researching whether you actually can find the business or you have to find the representative.
Well, they're working for the business and
Again, the question has gone to legal, so let Colin chime in about what we can and can't do.
I need to laminate the guidelines. I always ask them, do you have a capacity
So do I.
city? And then when they say no, I'm like, oh, I was gonna buy from you, but I can't.
you know what works? You know what works like nothing? We rent. All of my neighbors say that now. We rent. And they just have to walk away because they can only speak to the homeowner.
Okay.
Sorry, Colin.
Let's get
So
on shit.
for criminal purposes, there are some very strict state statutes that says what you have to have before a business is liable for the actions of its employees. Our recommendation here is that we treat it civilly, much like what you've talked about just now in the prior code enforcement discussion, and that we make a presumption that if the employee violates our code, the business either enticed, solicited, encouraged, or at least failed to say, don't do these things, and therefore go after the business civilly. So we have some pretty specific recommendations here in the discussion materials. These are based on discussions, a couple of meetings that we've had that we said, how can we improve this particular issue? And you've got the recommendations there in front of you, and largely it is change it from criminal violations to mostly civil violations, and use criminal violations only when it is more serious or repeat offenses.
And I really don't want our cops going out to check on somebody who is doing.
I'm always like, hold on, just stay right here. Excuse me, please.
It's like
Yeah.
some poor UV kid trying to sell bug spray.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. That's not the best use of our police time.
So is the individual violation fee on here, that's what you're assessing to the individual salesperson?
Yes, that's the recommendation.
So I have a question. Is it do they just pick where they go door to door? Or would a business normally say
They
you're
usually
hitting
drop
up
'em off.
Syracuse today, or you're doing this part today?
Most are
that's-
assigned.
Okay, so then that, I feel like they're,
That's-
like you said, being informed to, and
That's why it's reasonable to say they should register and get a solicitation license.
I would hold the business responsible for not not doing their due diligence and not.
So we're still doing the individual violation fee though.
We are.
But we're doing
That's what
that
the
in
proposal is,
conjunction, so we do individual and
So
business.
if we get a complaint that some person has just knocked on my door, didn't have the permit hanging around his or her neck, response, if we ever find the person by the time that someone can go out and respond, is you get a ticket and we get the information. Who do you work for? What's the name of your supervisor? You get the ticket on the spot. That other information comes back to Noah's shop and we track down the business and send them a citation in the mail. On such and such a day, you had 4 people in this neighborhood, none of them were
Ticketed for
licensed.
doing their
I just feel
job.
bad finding the kid.
So do I feel like that individual one is just.
Well, okay, so I mean, I'm sympathetic to it too, but I don't want to leave the personal part out of it. I mean, I have a son who does this type of work for a Windows company. But he went to his boss and gave the information that I gave him, and that was, you need a permit. And they looked into it, and across the Wasatch Front, here's what I got back. Some cities pretty much have policies that keep you from getting one. It takes, for example, they were just in Logan. He said it takes 2 weeks lead time. We do not have that obstacle. You could get it same day here. It costs them like $500 to register as a business in the city. We do not have that obstacle. I know that in southern part of the county, they had obstacles of you had to register daily and get photo ID daily. We don't have that obstacle either. I understand. So we've got a really reasonable system. What it comes down to is we have some people who want us to throw the book at them. I mean, they actually want us to arrest people who are doing door to door. I think that's too far, way too far, but that's what the phone calls I've taken is, when are you gonna start arresting these kids?
We're not, that's excessive and the jail doesn't have room for them.
Okay, well, Again, that's why I'm bringing it to the table for discussion, because should we be handling it differently so that businesses will come and follow our ordinances? In Syracuse, it's very easy. It is not difficult to come in and get a license and do business, whether you're here for a day or a week or whatever.
I just don't wanna penalize the guy who's just trying to
Whose job?
do his job.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know he's supposed to go check with the city, but the business
The
should.
business should.
And so I don't wanna try and I don't wanna increase the individual violation fee. I'd like to keep that, $20.
I feel like
tops.
if I get hired on at a company, I would trust that company did their due diligence not to put me in a situation where I'm gonna be fined for doing my
Because
job.
that individual is likely gonna go and say, hey, I got cited for.
Right.
I know.
And they're gonna be like, well, you shouldn't have been doing
Right,
that.
they're not.
And I said, oh, but what
Okay.
I'd like to see is, hey, I got cited for this $20, and oh, by the way, this is for you.
So-
Here's one for you that's $150.
So back to the question, what should we be doing to get
300.
people into compliance? Because honestly, it's not bad to be a door-to-door salesman for the right products. For example, my son sells windows to older neighborhoods. They do actually want windows to be upgraded.
I
That's
think what's proposed here is fair.
okay. So that's the question. Is it fair?
Well,
Except for the individual.
I agree with Jordan.
but still, I think that individual, if they're working for a company, they should be going back to that company and saying, hey, you didn't give me the proper instruction, you didn't get the proper licensing. I got personally issued this fine, I think you need to pay for it.
And now you're expecting another company to do the right thing by their employees, and that's a slim to none chance, and I feel like we can
Well,
prevent that.
I think as teenager who's here for the summer trying to just
Yeah.
pay
I
his
agree with
bills, he's saving for college. I don't feel like finding $150 is, I'm not okay with that.
Jordan, are you saying you shouldn't fine the individual at all, or $150 is too high?
I think it's.
I'm saying $10, 10 or 15,
Right.
and then, but the business gets the
Yes.
300.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that too.
I think even the individual, you gotta make it somewhat impactful, I know it's.
$25 for a teenager is impactful.
Well,
They're
they're not-
college
I think you gotta have.
Still,
more
like,
than
they're
15,
broke.
10,
Okay.
$50.
Let's take turns.
You're living off of like ramen.
Let's take turns.
I agree with Jordan. I think it should be like $20 max.
Okay, so let's get to the hard questions of the evening, and that is, should we be updating this ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I got consensus there. Are you comfortable with what's here or something close to it as a proposed solution?
I think I've made
Yes.
myself clear.
Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll bring this back to another meeting and we will be prepared to make a motion that is somewhat on these lines. Is that okay? I mean, you can still spend the time the next 2 weeks and decide where you think you should land, but my point is if we're that close, we can bring it to a business meeting.
I feel like it's great, except the individual.
So you're
Okay.
saying straight to
That's it.
business meeting or back to a work meeting?
No, to a business meeting, because I just got head nods that everybody thinks they could agree to something that's on this structure. So if that's the case, they'll negotiate between now and then.
On that though, would you be opposed to if the individual violation fee, like the first one is like $20, but the second one, if there is $150? That way it's
Sure.
cheaper, but like the first, it's like a two-tier. That way we're not just slapping them with a heavy fine, but if they're repetitive, we can hit them
Okay.
with it.
All
Okay,
right,
I'm good with that.
so we'll bring that back to
I
me.
think
It's more
education
fair
is
for the
important.
kid.
We can do
Yeah.
something like that. Now, the item we have all been waiting for and is really exciting, we are now going to review the noise ordinance. We have heard from some of our citizens that it is not effective. And so, council, what do we do to make this more effective?
This is what we get it when we put houses next to businesses, folks. This is one of those things.
Well, it's always there. I mean, you always get businesses next to houses.
Yeah, it's like when we're considering what we're putting along Antelope, this is one of those things, they're going right up behind houses, so how's it gonna affect? The noise complaint is the biggest complaint we get between homeowners and residents and businesses, is the amount of noise the businesses.
So what do we do to fix it? I'm open to all suggestions. Who has one?
You can't force people to be more considerate of each other.
So what I think in some of these circumstances, I think what would fix a lot of this is if we can figure out how to say, look, if you are in your house and you can hear amplified audio on a regular basis, that's illegal.
How do you quantify it? That's been our question
But that's
before.
what they are hearing, that's what they're
Oh,
saying.
right,
Yeah.
so the
Right.
question is, how do you quantify when the law is broken? Because that's the question.
I think if you're sitting in their house and they can provide a recording. I'm okay with recordings, I'm okay with someone coming over with a meter or something. But the bottom line is, we have a problem, we gotta fix it.
Agreed,
If they show up and you're like, hey, look, I have a video of me taking a shot at the time on her phone, and you can clearly hear this music penetrating our walls. And the cop can see that, okay, that's a ticket, like, we can show what time this was happening, and just because we weren't here for it, doesn't mean it wasn't happening.
all right, so I'm gonna bring it back to the last time we dealt with the noise ordinance. The reason that we brought in meters was because something had to be defensible in court.
Yeah.
In case somebody appeals this. So is that sufficient? And if it's not, then we have to go further. So is that sufficient? Can that hold up in court?
It depends.
If it's clearly audible,
The attorney answer for everything.
if it's clearly audible inside the house.
Windows open and doors open, windows closed and doors closed, it makes a difference.
I don't think it's too much to ask that if I'm in my backyard, I don't have to hear the noise all day long.
That's the current ordinance. It's at the fence line of
It's a
the,
property
of
line,
the
yeah.
noisy offender.
Is it possible for Rush to run their music and not be heard?
Yes, they're doing it now, but it took them 3 months to get them there.
Okay, then, possible.
So the answer to the question is, it is possible for them to do it. So how do we hold them accountable to it? And how do we streamline the process if there are other violators who enter the city and violated other?
Charge them money.
It's employees,
offense.
it's the employees that go over there and crank up the volume of.
But the issue we have here, is we've been talking about 72-hour response times on a complaint. And on something that you have to catch them in the act, you have to create some kind of allowances for this, because issuing putting in a fix-it ticket, my neighbors or my whatever it is too noisy, and you show up 3 days later, that
So
doesn't cut
why
it.
don't we just get very direct with the Rush, like, this is your noise ordinance.
Because
After
the,
this point, you need to turn it down.
okay, because the ordinance has to be defensible across all businesses. I understand that.
Why can't we get direct with all businesses?
Well, no, that we have to, okay, I get it. You want to talk to the Rush and solve the problem at the Rush. But if this same thing happens, whatever we craft as legislation has to be universally applicable. That's where we have to go with the ordinance.
So I guess my question actually is, if our current ordinance says, if it's a violation, if it's clearly audible at the fence line, why were they not ever?
Okay, you're going
penalized?
backwards. So let me put that on hold for just a minute, because
I feel like our ordinance says it.
Them, then we'll be able to start fixing this problem.
okay, so yeah, is that the answer that we're going to, is how do we enforce it? Because it's not being enforceable now. Then I'm open to the question of why was it not being enforced, but the point is let's get to what can change the outcome. What will change the outcome? What do we change to make the outcome better?
It is possible scientifically, and the homeowners have raised this issue. The internet also refers to it. We use a meter that measures what the human ear hears. There is another decibel meter, and I haven't done the scientific work, nor am I an expert, nor will I ever be. But there's another meter that measures the boom, boom, boom of a bass,
Oh, yeah.
which is the offensive noise to the homeowners, I think, most of the time.
Okay.
Our meters do not pick that up, so maybe we could look at
Subaudible.
yes,
sound.
changing the ordinance to require either what we currently have, or in the alternative, that's something that's picked up by this other meter that gets that booming bass sound.
Okay.
That's one option.
That's one option. Council, any other?
The problem there, as soon as you start using specialized equipment, you have to put them in every single. If the police are responding, it has to be in every single squad car.
But does it though? Our city's not that big. You can be at the PD and they gotta go do a sound thing, they just go pick it up.
I think, how many do you have, Garrett?
See?
You've got two, you've got one.
See?
What Colin was saying, though, that would require an ordinance change, because it's a different spectrum of the decibel.
Right.
Ours says.
Ours is
I'm not gonna
audible.
understand the science of this either, or try to pretend, but it says dBA, that's what this reads.
Yeah.
So for the ordinance, this is accurate. But for what you're talking about, it would require a different ordinance change, and I have no idea what those cost.
Okay. So we could
But we
do
don't-
that.
We have.
Get a
two-
couple of those
we have two
machines to
then
change
code
that,
enforcement
seems like
have-
the most logical thing to
But-
do.
But
But does
then,
that solve the problem?
well, no, it can, it's a step in the right direction, but then the response time has to be there too.
Okay, so maybe that's part of the big question. How do we alter the response time?
So let me ask you this, so if we have someone that's we have a chronic offender, can we loan the homeowner that decibel meter? And all they have to do is provide a video with the decibel meter active, and it's, look, they're obviously in violation, and we send them the ticket.
Is that admissible? Is that hold up?
I mean, you could fake that, obviously, you
Yes,
could go, you could
the
turn on a
argument
radio
would be is that
somewhere.
it's not reliable, but yes, I could make the argument that it's as reliable as a police officer holding the meter.
I mean, so when you're using the decibel meter, the ordinance currently says that has to be sustained for 10 minutes.
Basic, 10 minutes, basically with no interruption, it has to be ongoing for 10
So,
minutes.
I mean, it has to be sustained above that level for 10 minutes, right? So if at any point, as an example, if the ordinance says 60 decibels, if at any point you're reading it, and it drops to 42, like in the middle of
You're
the song as
starting
an
over.
example.
That
it's-
doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't like
That
that
doesn't
10-minute
So,
thing.
so that's one thing. The other thing is we did try the video thing.
Okay.
To have that actually reviewed based on video. So we submitted a charge with the video he provided.
Okay,
Which I declined.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, so when we're saying like, can that be done? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, look, we tried that.
But it
Okay,
didn't work.
So we
Okay.
did that as one of them, is we're saying like, well, that would be as good as a police officer there.
So
I'm saying if it's just the sound, we tried that.
Okay, so you declined it though, right?
And it's
Right.
not just the rush, it's the same decision process I used for earthworks last summer.
Yeah.
When we were getting the same complaints from the neighbors around the
But
earthworks.
what was what would have been to where you would have accepted it?
I think it sounds like the 10 minutes is what's killing. it.
Well, no offense, but to me, it came down to an issue of credibility. This individual, Mr. Kimball, thank you, had submitted 9 complaints or 10 complaints throughout the summer. Officers went, now granted, they aren't there right there, they're there when they can get there.
Right.
And the
It's not-
meter thing didn't work, and so we had this whole small stack of complaints that were not supported. Now, from my point of view as a prosecutor, I have to look at the credibility of the witness, and I say 9 times out of 10, he was wrong. If I'm a defense lawyer, I'm gonna have all kinds of fun with you on the stand, and I decided it wasn't gonna fly.
Okay, so, but then how could you make the argument that the person holding the meter is as credible as a law enforcement officer if you kicked back another video because it wasn't credible from the person that sent it in?
If I didn't have those first 9 complaints, I could have done
You
that,
could have
and I
done
would
it
have
with
felt
the-
much better
yeah.
about it.
So, but if we're having a bad response, not bad, but like a delayed response time from law enforcement, of course, someone's gonna keep complaining until they get a response. So that doesn't mean that they've got a vendetta out. They just want a reply.
They just
I don't
want
think
something.
anybody
They
suggested
just
a
want something
vendetta.
done. Like, and I don't feel like that's, I don't know, I feel like this is just kind of well, if it works for us, we'll do it. If it's,
Well,
we didn't give you the permission, we're not accepting it, is what it kind of sounds like on that.
no, he's putting it in the position of, I have to defend this in.
No, I
court-
understand
in
that,
court,
but-
And the defense attorney is gonna come and say, you've submitted 9 reports, and
Well, I understand that, but I'm asking, but he's be willing to argue that the same person holding a meter is as credible as an officer.
yeah.
But if it's the same damn person, how was it credible in one and not in the other?
Because the way that our court system works is you can say that this person failed at their credibility test 9 times and only once met the credible criteria.
Because we give them, I don't see
It's
how
about
that would
can
hold
we
up
win
if
the
one
case
would,
or
how
not?
can the other?
So what I
I'm
would.
not an attorney, so.
All right, so here's what I'm gonna suggest. The issue really comes down to, is there a better way that we can get the desirable result, which is to get in compliance the noise faster? Because if we have to go through a court system that can be challenged, the level of the burden of proof is much higher. And that's the problem. In this case, the burden of proof became a questionable outcome. And so the system doesn't help them resolve the issue. what does? That's our question. What do we change so that when a problem happens, we can act on it and get a desirable outcome?
Like, I think part of the problem is the code, like 10 consecutive minutes.
It's a long time.
And I haven't read, is there anything that says, or?
No, it says to constitute a violation, the noise must be measured with a sound level meter approved by the
Okay,
city.
so we
and
can
must
change that.
exceed the allowable level for at least 10 continuous minutes.
There's only one
But-
song that goes 10
Or
minutes.
after 11 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday, any amplified
The
noise.
song is two
Yeah.
and a half to 3 minutes.
So I would say 2.5 minutes would be an acceptable time, you would, the length of what, because then it'll
I would just
stop and start
stipulate-
another one.
Yeah, less the time and say it doesn't have to be
Or
continuous.
don't even.
If, if they do, if you have something that goes ding,
Or it's,
ding,
or it's so much, or it's
that would fail this test.
so many times
A water
throughout
boarding.
a whatever period. That it's above, I think 10 minutes consecutive is
It's ridiculous,
wrong.
Yeah, if you look at like a chart, if it peaks above that point.
Yeah,
certain
so
number of
many times in a whatever period of time.
Okay,
So I would love our lawyer to
That's a
tell us
new
that
standard.
if there is a noise that goes for, you know, a reasonable amount of time, but again, songs end and that would immediately make it fail.
well,
Like, if it was like 2 consecutive minutes for a period of 20 minutes.
Why
I
is it
think
two
where Paul was-
consecutive?
Okay, here's the thing, I think where Paul is going is better, because if it exceeds this decibel level, how many times, over a period of time?
Yeah.
Because that means that
Yeah, you can
in
see
that
it's
time, you can see
continuous.
that they kept going up, so you're gonna record that, and you're gonna say, okay, this is a constant.
So if someone blows an air horn,
Right.
once every 2 minutes,
You're gonna go
you would,
crazy.
you couldn't crack this in such a way to, I like
This
where
is one
Paul's
of those things
going.
we talked about before, sleep is a big deal to people. And
I love
noise
sleep.
Yeah, me too, I really love sleep. And noise ordinance is a big deal, so.
And we may just get some at the end of the night, if we keep going.
Maybe.
Garrett, do our machines
Some of us.
record some side of data, or you just say, I watched it and I watched it peak?
It's mostly that, they do have the ability for the time period you were holding it, so let's just say, for an example, you were holding it for 5 minutes. You could hit a button that would say, tell me what the high and the low was within that 5 minutes, but it's only gonna give you that one particular reading. It's not.
Okay.
When we say recording, I mean, yeah, literally, if an officer sitting there the whole time with it like this, it could be recording on their body cam.
Mm.
You know, a portion of this is, you know, the time that you're going to spend on it, and then an understanding that the ordinance that you craft is going, as we've said, it's gonna be applied to all businesses,
Mhm.
not just the rush. So as you start saying, well, 2 minutes is a song, right? You gotta start thinking about what are the other things that
Construction
maybe we're not
vehicles.
anticipating that are gonna last longer than that.
And what if they only go in reverse once every 3 minutes?
Yeah.
You know, Mayor, I would also say, I mean, one of the things that we addressed in the last code enforcement
Mhm.
conversation was this ability to go after the business, right?
Mhm.
That wasn't something that we necessarily had the ability to be able to do right now,
Mhm.
based on what the ordinance was. So, you know, sometimes with this, when the officers, I mean, they would go talk to a person at Rush, and we're back into the same thing. This is a 20-year-old kid who happens to be the night manager, and he's like, I don't know how to deal with this. I mean, some of them told us, I don't know how to turn it down, right?
Really?
And
It's in a locked cabinet.
Well,
Now
right.
it is.
Well,
Apparently,
that's-
now it
that's
is.
right.
But I mean, that's kind of the idea with it. So do you go in and give this kid a criminal citation? Remember, a criminal citation is going to somebody's record, right? So do you go in and give them a criminal citation for something like this? Or even if you're talking about a civil one, do you go in and hang $100 citation on this person when they didn't really have control over
No, I
what
think
they
it's-
were
I would
doing?
It's really the business owner is the one.
Yeah.
Staff, and they
So-
can learn if they don't.
Just like the last thing, we don't wanna hit the working kid that just isn't sure, like the business owners, they know, they know.
That was-
And if they act like they don't know, they need better
No, they
attorneys.
need a little note on the boom box, or, you know, the stereo system that says, don't put it past 8. I mean, they just need training.
If
Well,
we
you
can
know,
primarily assess this to the businesses again through civil process, that number one reduces the level of the burden of proof and flips who has the burden.
Mhm.
So if we, I mean,
Good point.
if we can put something like that in there, perhaps that would have helped address this problem earlier, because we wouldn't have had to get to such a high level.
Yeah, see, in my mind, this is all civil, I don't think we should be arresting a 20-year-old kid because he's violating a noise ordinance.
Okay,
Unknowingly. But they can put notes on the
So-
material and they can do training staff.
Can we make this civil that we can go after the business?
We can.
Okay,
We should do that.
It's like it's an and, as Colin has said
Mhm.
before, like a civil, well, it's an and or. So it's civil and or criminal, because remember, this doesn't just apply to businesses either, like this
Right.
could
Yeah.
be your party houses.
right.
It
Yeah,
could
let's
be
get
that.
them too.
So,
Well, Syracuse Six Theater.
What?
I mean, you can hear that.
Boom, boom.
Well, you know when those dinosaurs are chasing those people. It's been 23 years, okay?
Play there.
When you're in Syracuse, you could sit on the porch and you know what movie they're watching.
So if you put a cup of water there on your. Vibrate.
Scene.
Okay, all right, so
But yeah,
to summarize, have we come any closer to something that solves our problem, or are we still just?
so I think we're fixing the 10 minutes and we're adding us the ability to go after them.
Do you want us to look in the alternative low-level thumpy noise meter, whatever the scientific word is?
Probably, if that's what we need to hold up in court.
I don't know if we do yet.
I don't know if we do yet
Well, at
either.
least look into what it might cost us, so we know before.
I've done a little bit of research and there are thousands of dollars and they require calibration. So it
So
does
you-
have a
As soon as
cost.
you insert calibration into it,
Yeah,
now
now
you're.
it's
You gotta
arguable in
have someone
court.
that's qualified to operate.
I think if
it.
you remove the
Need
10
a
minutes,
certificate.
if you remove the 10 minute and you add a civil, I think that would resolve the issues we've been talking about today.
I think once businesses know we can ticket them, they'll be more likely to.
There's a cup of water, you
Your
just like
background.
all and say, you just put on the table.
Okay,
If the ripples are
That
1
should be enough
millimeter
evidence,
high.
right?
Dashboard
Like,
of
if you
your
could
Ford
see it
Escape.
rippling each thing.
all right, so here's what I'm gonna say, do you think that we're close enough to
Box next criminal.
change this ordinance?
I think we are.
Yeah,
I'd love to see the verbiage, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then under that premise, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, I'll instruct staff to come up with what they perceive our resolution is. It'll be open for discussion on our next business meeting, and we can take possible action.
I think it'll take longer than one business.
I
meeting.
think it probably will too, but we'll put it on for possible action if we come to a point where you agree with it, but I gotta say, I'm still a little bit leery that we've made it. But we'll see, we'll poke holes in it and
Hopefully.
see what we can do.
Just so I'm clear, Mayor, I'm sorry, what I was trying to say, and I didn't know if I said it clearly, is I don't think staff can turn it around between now and your next business meeting.
Oh,
I'm thinking 6 weeks out or so.
okay,
The November voting meeting.
okay.
Does that work? I don't.
In that
yeah.
case, I'd rather bring it, I would be open to bringing
this
this
is be
back.
honest about it.
I try-
We got staff.
Okay, but I try not to bring thing or repeat the same discussion. How do you feel about bringing this back to see if we do have it resolved in 4 weeks at the next work session? Or do you think that this is gonna land where we want it?
I'm welcome. I'd like to
Take
review
another
it.
work session, just.
I
look
think we
over
gotta
it.
get it.
This
Right.
one has been difficult enough, and the last time we did it was difficult enough that I think this warrants a second work session.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
And this is relatively new. This is only like 3 or 4 years old in our community, so we expect it to grow up.
Okay,
Right, and
we are gonna see more
with
complaints.
the more
Let's
businesses,
get
the
it right.
more, you know.
All right, so that's when we'll talk about it again. Next item, discuss proposed budget amendments for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. These are just, periodically between the time that we start the budget and we end, we have to kind of get some updates and adjustments. So Steve, bring those to our attention.
Yeah, 2 seconds. Most of this is carryover of capital projects from last year to this fiscal year. There are a few additions. We talked about the pumps, additional pumps at the secondary pond that we just built. That's 2 additional pumps. There is addition of like $100,000 to our safety sidewalk project. That's a culinary addition. I guess we'll do some culinary add-ons to that. And then there's some studies and some carryovers as well in our park maintenance funds and our capital projects fund. I'm not gonna take any more time. If you guys have questions on specific items, let me know.
So I had things that I didn't see on here. When are we expecting to hear back on the Safer grant? Isn't it around this time frame?
Yeah, but we haven't yet, so.
We have not heard back yet.
Yeah, we have seen others start to be awarded, but that doesn't mean that we won't, it hasn't been
Okay.
official yet.
The other one I had is, so we all saw that one of our pumps self-destructed. I mean, it had a log jam.
That was
So
wild.
is that pump dead now? I'm guessing.
Go Ryan Mills
So,
for that.
so I guess what I was wondering, I didn't see on here, do we need to replace that? I know it's got a substitute in, but I think it's a smaller pump. Or is it the same size?
It's the same size.
Oh, okay.
We did have a spare on hand, from the old well pond. So
Okay.
put that in, but we're just replacing.
So are we,
So we need to get a new spare.
so yeah, do we need, I guess what I didn't see on here was, I just. I like that comfort blanket of having a pump ready to go in case of an issue.
We're covering it. It's budget,
Okay,
so and it's covered.
okay, that's what I did. Thanks.
So if there's nothing else, we'll take that to a vote, and I appreciate that. Let's go forward. The next item, and this one should be easy, but discuss proposed repeal of section 3.1.7 and 3.10.8A. This really comes down to where our current code forces us to take all property decisions through the planning commission. That doesn't make any sense because the only thing that there is to discuss is money. And should we, and that's just not a planning commission thing. So even they agreed with 100% vote that it doesn't need to go to planning commission. So are we okay with that? Because it needs to be updated.
So I guess I'd love to hear, Brett, your opinion on that. I mean, I know you're on the planning commission for a while. Is this a? Well, what was it good to have more eyes on this? Was it helpful?
Difference.
Okay, then yeah.
I mean, the event is that we had this land trade come up and
Sure.
it was done by the city and
There's very little discussion on items.
it was
like
100% agreement by
Yeah, they're just
everyone.
like, oh, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
discuss proposal to amend chapter 3.30 of the municipal code regarding access to Syracuse City Employee Appeals Board. Steve, was this you?
Probably me by.
Oh, no, it's
default.
you, Colin. Sorry, you're right. It is
None
Colin.
of the human resources people are here, so I'll do it.
Okay,
So currently, there's state law, there's our city code, and there are personnel policies. And it says who can use the employee appeals board and who cannot. And they don't match up perfectly. If you look at that chart, the ones with the yellow squares are where they don't match up. We could make assistant chief of police and assistant fire chief and assistant department heads, if we have any, and superintendents be able to use the appeals board. And that is what they currently do under our personnel policy.
But the state says they don't.
State
They're not
says they
eligible.
don't. So here's the rub. If the state says you get to use the appeals board, we can't say, no, you don't. But in this case, the state says you don't get to use the appeals board.
And we say yes.
And we can say, yeah, but for these kinds of people, we're gonna go the extra mile and let them use it. So my recommendation, well, actually, it's a recommendation of human resources, is that we let those 4 categories use the appeals board. And then there's the temporary employees, which the state does not allow them to, our personnel policy does not allow them to, but our ordinance is not in compliance. And so we change that and say temporary employees cannot use the appeals board, assistant chief of police, assistant fire chief, assistant department heads, and superintendents can use the appeals board.
Like all
I'm okay
full-time
with that.
employees can, temporary
All of
cannot.
it, yep.
Okay, I would support that, yeah. I would think they should all be able to use it anyway.
So
full-time.
basically, the only people that can are the highly up the ladder appointed positions.
yeah, appointments can't, but
And I'm told that the reason that we did it the way we did it in our personnel policy is that the assistant police chief, the assistant fire chief, assistant department heads, which I'm not sure we even have any, and
Mhm.
superintendents, they don't have a severance package. So, for example, I learned this the other day, I have a severance package. What good would it do me to go to the appeals board? I'll just take the money and run, right? Those people do not have that protection of getting 2 or 3 or 4 months if they get
only
fired.
department heads have that severance.
Okay,
package.
this makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
they should be able to, yeah.
Okay, so I think we're in agreement on that.
Okay.
Item M, discuss proposed amendment Syracuse City purchasing policy relative to competitive bidding requirements for professional services.
Just, it's not long.
again, me, I.
Yeah, Colin,
So we discovered when we got sued recently and we had to go out and hire an attorney in a hurry, that we didn't have time to go out to bid and get bids and review those bids and make an award and all of that sort of stuff. got looking around, and it's not unusual that professional services are exempt from the bidding policy in several local governments, and I've cited some here that I was familiar with. We used a little provision in our ordinances that says contracts which by their nature are not adapted to being awarded by competitive bidding can go without competitive bidding. And we said, yeah, we don't have time to do competitive bidding, therefore this is one of those contracts. But we did that sort of going, I hope the city council agrees with us, and we don't want to be in that position. So our recommendation is that at least we exempt legal services, and maybe you exempt all sorts of additional professional services.
We already have engineering services on a
Retainer.
retainer.
Because you
Yeah.
did an RFP and you
Yeah,
have them out
Sure.
there. But in legal services, I might need a water lawyer this week, or a land use lawyer next week, or some other kind of lawyer the following week, and I don't need to have 15 different law firms
On retainer, yeah.
on retainer all the time.
Sure.
So how do we fix, how do you?
We
I'm
allow
okay adding
for
legal services.
Short-term need to be just direct hire.
Because, yeah, legal services, we have to act quickly. We're gonna have,
And
I think we have the rest covered through all
I
of
think
our
the big
engineering
issue is with
retainers.
legal services, there's so many specialties.
Sure.
And we just don't have that many options. It's not like there are 50 people who do land use law in our city or nearby. There are in state, but.
Thank heavens, because land use lawyers are pretty strange.
There's only like seven water use attorneys in the area. Other than the area, like 100-mile radius.
All right, with that said, I'm gonna move us on. We'll fix that one. I'm going to adjourn us from this meeting, and I am going to call to order a special business meeting of the city council. And can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Uh,
While we have a business meeting, we want to do the approval of minutes from the September business meeting. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? Any changes? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Move that we accept the meetings as outlined in the packet.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, I think that was unanimous. Didn't quite hear everybody. All right, so the last thing is we are going to consideration for adjourning into closed session. This would be a legal issue that we are allowed to meet in private, and we do have one to discuss.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to move into closed session?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
We are moving to closed session. I think we need Noah. That's it. And Colin. Robert, can
And this gentleman.
I? Okay.
I'll be right back.